Chapter 486. It was noon and the density of spirit chi was at its peak. Aquatic demon beasts began to appear at the mouth of the hidden dragon river. These demon beasts usually hid in waters with dense spirit chi to avoid detection by human cultivators. The more spirit chi there was in the water and rocks, the more effective it was in concealing a cultivator's spirit consciousness. As long as the aquatic demon beasts in the Wanchuan River did not cause a ruckus, human cultivators would not be able to detect them easily. The density of spirit chi in the hidden dragon river was not high, and it was also the territory of human cultivators. Therefore, Class 3 superior grade demon beasts would not choose to stay here for long periods of time. The Class 4 spirit vein in the Wanchuan River was also occupied by Class 4 aquatic demon beasts. For most Class 3 demon beasts, it was difficult to find a place to break through to Class 4. Now that the spirit chi tide was here, the density of spirit chi increased greatly. Be it for humans or demon beasts, this was a heaven-sent opportunity for them to break through. This group of aquatic demonic beasts no longer hid themselves. They all gathered here and risked their lives to take a gamble. If they succeeded, they would become Class 4 demon beasts. If they failed, their lives would be in danger. At this moment, a large number of cultivators gathered at the mouth of the hidden dragon river. Some of them were like Wang Daoyuan's group and wanted to try their luck to catch a few rare demon beasts. However, most of them had encountered bottlenecks in their cultivation and wanted to use the opportunity of the spirit chi tide to break through their bottlenecks. 15 minutes later, a black crocodile emerged from the water and rode the waves towards the mouth of the Wanchuan River. Upon closer inspection, one would realize that this crocodile was not simple. It was more than 10 feet tall and had 2 3-inch bone protrusions on its head. There were also 2 fleshy feelers by its mouth. Its body was slimmer than ordinary crocodile-type demon beasts, and its limbs were slender as well. The scales on its back were no different from ordinary crocodiles. However, the scales on its limbs resembled those of a carp. This was not an ordinary crocodile-type demon beast, but a hui dragon. Although its appearance was closer to a crocodile, it was a true dragon. This should be one of the 9 pseudo-dragons that had appeared earlier. However, Wang Daoyuan was not interested in it. The less similar a dragon's appearance was to a true dragon, the thinner its bloodline would be. Even if this hui dragon had a pseudo-dragon pearl, its quality would not be great. Although he was not tempted, it did not mean that others were not tempted as well. As soon as Zhuo Long appeared, a few of the cultivators who were watching the show could no longer hold themselves back. A late-stage Zifu disciple flew atop his flying sword, landing atop the nightmare dragon. The flying sword beneath his feet chopped out multiple streaks of sword light. As a dragon species, hui dragons were not to be trifled with. After taking a few sword rays head-on, he remained unscathed. With a flick of its tail, a huge wave that was several hundred feet high was created on the river. The late-stage Zifu disciple wasn't able to dodge in time, and he was knocked into the water. The drake opened its mouth and was about to bite down. The Zifu disciple had been smashed into a daze by the giant wave, and his injuries were not light. However, his battle experience was still extremely rich. He hurriedly used an escape technique to avoid the bloody mouth. After that, he didn't dare to stay on the surface of the river any longer and returned to the shore on his sword. Although this hui dragon's appearance was a little off, its fighting prowess was not weak. With just a single move, he was able to severely injure a cultivator of the same level as him. No one else dared to make a move. The cultivators that Zhou Jingyuan entertained were all outstanding cultivators of the same level. Moreover, with Zhou Jingyan and the princesses present, this was a rare opportunity for them to perform. Seeing that the others did not dare to make a move, they naturally wanted to show off their skills. For people made a move to surround and kill the hui dragon. The others were still watching the show, and they looked down on the hui dragon. However, the hui dragon's appearance was only the beginning. 100 breaths later, a blue flood serpent emerged from the water and headed towards the mouth of the hidden dragon river. The reason why it was called a flood serpent and not a flood dragon was because this fellow did not have enough dragon characteristics. This flood serpent was more than 200 feet long, and there was a long horn on its head. Although its head looked a little like a dragon, It looked more like a python with two fleshy feelers hanging from its mouth. It only had 2 legs, a bald tail, and no scales on its body. This fellow's bloodline was about the same as the Hui dragon from before. Wang Daoyuan naturally looked down on it. However, this flood serpent seemed easier to bully than the Hui dragon. Among the group of people, another 5 people made a move. Soon, 3 more dragon breeds appeared. One had the head of a flood serpent and the tail of a fish, while the other looked like a lizard. The third was a black flood dragon. It was rather interesting. It had a pair of sharp horns on its head, and there were no traces of a python on its head. There were still no scales on its body, only 2 claws and 3 toes, and its tail was still bald. Ordinary flood dragons were just like that. Among the group of people, another dozen or so people made a move. This time, Wang Daoyuan was also a little tempted. The pseudo-dragon pearl of such a dragon species was not low in strength. It would not be a problem to refine the azure dragon pearl. However, he still planned to wait for a while. The dragon race was far more intelligent than ordinary beasts. The higher the concentration of dragon blood, the higher the intelligence of the dragon species. This kind of person wouldn't come out so rashly. The rat pulled the shovel, and the big head was at the back. There were a total of 9 dragon species, and only 5 had appeared. There was no rush to make a move. Soon, another 3 flood dragons flew out. One of them was a fire flood dragon, one was a poison flood dragon, and one was a silver flood dragon. Among them, the silver flood dragon was the most dragon-shaped. Its head was no different from a dragon's head except that its horns were not forked and it did not have long whiskers on its chin. Its body was also densely covered in silver scales. It had 4 claws and 3 toes, and its tail was still bald. Even so, the concentration of dragon blood in this flood dragon was extremely high. 8 of the 9 pseudo-dragons had already appeared. Wang Daoyuan did not plan to wait any longer. At this moment, the 8 pseudo-dragons had already been besieged. Although the dragon species were powerful, they could not withstand the siege of so many people. They did not dare to waste time with the human cultivators and swam desperately to the mouth of the hidden dragon river. Although 2 people were already besieging the silver flood dragon, as long as he contributed the most, it would not be a problem to take the pseudo-dragon pearl. On the platform on the top floor of the hidden dragon pavilion, except for Zhou Jingyuan and the princesses, the others had already joined the siege. Zhou Jingyuan smiled and said, "Only 8 of the 9 pseudo-dragons have appeared. Wang Daoyu, are you not going to wait any longer?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "Time waits for no man. If the 9th one escapes, wouldn't my trip be in vain?" It was not unheard of for a pseudo-dragon to not show up when it saw that the situation was not right. He rode the wind-fire flying kite and flew to the mouth of the river. He took out the white tiger blade and attacked the silver flood dragon. Right at this moment, on the surface of the river dozens of miles downstream of the mouth of the river, a monstrous wave surged. Then, a dark green flood dragon soared into the sky. Rank 3 flood dragons could not fly. Since this flood dragon could fly, everyone thought that it was a rank 4 flood dragon. Wang Daoyuan scanned it with his spiritual sense and found that this flood dragon was only a high rank 3 flood dragon. However, it was extremely close to rank 4, which was equivalent to a peak Violet Palace realm cultivator. For it to be able to fly before reaching rank 4, it should have awakened the dragon race's inherited memories and learned the dragon race's flying techniques. Any flood dragon like this had a high chance of becoming a true dragon. Wang Daoyuan gave up on the silver flood dragon and prepared to take down this dark green flood dragon. When it flew closer, Wang Daoyuan could see its appearance clearly. This fellow's head was not much different from a true dragon's, except that both of its horns were forked. It had 4 claws and 3 toes, and a luxuriant mane on its tail. Its body was covered in dark green scales, as if pieces of jade were embedded on its body. In terms of appearance, the flood dragon of the myriad spirit sex Daoist dragon was not as good as this flood dragon in front of him. This fellow should be a jade-scaled flood dragon. Although there were a few flood dragons among the 8 dragon species, they were all snakes that turned into flood dragons and did not have a specific race name. This jade-scaled flood dragon had a race name. It was born as a flood dragon, and the concentration of dragon blood was much higher than that of snakes that turned into flood dragons. In addition, it had awakened the dragon race's inherited memories. As long as there were enough resources, it was only a matter of time before it turned into a dragon. However, it needed to be at least rank 6 to become a true dragon. Beijing Xiaoxian was not enough to raise a rank 6 monster beast. This kind of jade-scaled flood dragon had the potential to turn into a dragon. In a fight of the same rank, human cultivators who could defeat it could be said to be rare. The jade-scaled flood dragon went against the flow, and all the cultivators along the way avoided it. However, not only did Wang Daoyuan not avoid it, but he also went up to it. Chapter 487. This jade-scaled flood dragon was more than 20 feet long, and its body diameter was also close to 10 feet long. However, its flying speed was faster than ordinary beasts of the same level, comparable to Wang Daoyuan's wind-fire flying kite. When the two were more than 10 miles apart, Wang Daoyuan did not dare to get closer. The jade-scaled flood dragon was known as a semi-divine beast, and its dragon body was extremely strong. If he got any closer, it would be easy for it to get close to him. Who would dare to fight a semi-divine beast? He held the white tiger blade in his hand and used the myriad sword art, slashing out 5 long sword shadows to test the defense of the jade-scaled flood dragon. The jade-scaled flood dragon did not even look at the 5 long sword shadows. It did not even care about Wang Daoyuan and went straight to the mouth of the hidden dragon river. The 4 sword shadows slashed on the scales of the jade-scaled flood dragon, making clanking sounds, but did not even leave a mark. The last sword shadow slashed between its 2 horns. Although it did not leave a mark, it still angered the jade-scaled flood dragon. How could a semi-divine beast with the potential to transform into a dragon endure such anger? It no longer went to the mouth of the hidden dragon river, but changed its direction and pounced on Wang Daoyuan. The 5 myriad sword art did not even leave a mark. Wang Daoyuan used the sword shadow divine light technique, and 10 sword shadows appeared, slashing at the head of the jade-scaled flood dragon. The jade-scaled flood dragon twisted its body in the air, dodging the sword shadows with its head, and using its body to meet the 4 dragon claws. In an instant, 4 sword shadows were crushed by the dragon claws. The other 6 sword shadows slashed on the scales of the jade-scaled flood dragon, but only left a few slight marks, far from breaking the defense. Wang Daoyuan immediately controlled the 6 dim sword shadows to dodge the dragon claws and attack the head of the jade-scaled flood dragon. The jade-scaled flood dragon reacted quickly, opening its bloody mouth and releasing a strong suction force. The 6 sword shadows were sucked into its mouth, and Wang Daoyuan could no longer sense the existence of the sword shadows. The sword shadow divine light technique, which had always been effective against cultivators of the same level, could not withstand a single blow in front of it. When the jade scale flood dragon opened its mouth to swallow the sword shadow, it revealed a reverse golden scale below its throat. This was the dragon's reverse scale. The reverse scale was the core of a dragon's power, especially for dragons. The reverse scale was the key to transforming into a dragon, but it was also a fatal weakness. In order to protect this fatal weakness, the strength of the reverse scale far exceeded that of ordinary scales. However, as long as one could break through the reverse scale or enter through the gaps between the scales, they would be able to kill the jade scale flood dragon. After the jade scale flood dragon swallowed the sword shadow, it flew towards Wang Daoyuan. It swore to kill this little bug that dared to offend the dragon's might. Wang Daoyuan summoned the dark sound soul-bearing bell. Under his full power, a long sword formed from his spiritual sense and sound waves slashed towards the jade scale flood dragon. The demonic beast's divine sense wasn't strong, and it didn't have a purple mansion to protect its soul. Therefore, the sound wave attack was a fatal move to them. However, this jade scale flood dragon was not to be trifled with. It raised its head and let out a resounding dragon roar. The aquatic demonic beasts in the surroundings all bowed down. Even the other 8 dragon species lowered their heads to show their submission. The cultivators who were besieging the dragon species were all frightened. They didn't dare to continue to stay on the river. They gave up the encirclement and fled to the shore. The long sword released by the dark sound soul-bearing bell was also directly shattered by the dragon's roar. Fortunately, Wang Daoyuan reacted quickly. He activated the dark sound soul-bearing bell again and formed a black defensive light shield to block the dragon's roar. The flood dragon didn't have a powerful roar attack method. This move was so powerful that it was most likely learned from the inherited memories of the dragon clan. The jade scale flood dragon rushed towards him. Wang Daoyuan put away the firestorm flying kite and landed on the river surface. At the same time, he began to condense the golden rock's shadow. The jade scale flood dragon cast a spell to attack, while he used the smoke escape to dodge. This was the Wanchuan River, and it was also the spirit qi tide. The water spirit qi was extremely rich. The smoke escape instantly condensed a black cloud with a diameter of more than 500 feet. The jade scale flood dragon's spiritual sense couldn't penetrate and it lost track of Wang Daoyuan. It opened its mouth and suddenly spat out a green stream of air. The black cloud instantly dissipated. In order to stall for time, Wang Daoyuan used the smoke escape again. The jade scale flood dragon also used the same trick. After 5 breaths of time, the golden rock's shadow with a wingspan of 100 feet appeared above Wang Daoyuan. When the jade scale flood dragon saw the golden rock, a trace of fear appeared in its eyes. Rocks belonged to the Phoenix lineage. They didn't have a high status in the Phoenix clan. They were equivalent to the more ordinary true dragons of the dragon clan. Rocks had a ferocious temperament and liked to devour, especially demon beasts with the bloodline of divine beasts. Although they couldn't eat true dragons, they could still eat dragon bloodline demon beasts. Therefore, semi-divine beasts like the flood dragon were somewhat afraid of rocks. However, the jade scale flood dragon's fear only lasted for a moment. It soon sensed that the rock had a form but no spirit. The golden rock grabbed at the jade scale flood dragon. The jade scale flood dragon didn't dare to take the attack head-on and dodged. Wang Daoyuan used the feather blade and released 100 golden feathers to attack the jade scale flood dragon. The jade scale flood dragon couldn't dodge in time and was hit by the feather blade, leaving scratches on its body. Unfortunately, the feather blade still couldn't break through its defense. The jade scale flood dragon heaved a sigh of relief, thinking that this spell was only SOS. Wang Daoyuan took advantage of the moment when it relaxed and instantly released the remaining 900 feather blades. The 900 golden feathers attacked the jade scale flood dragon's head at an extremely fast speed. The jade scale flood dragon's eyes revealed a look of horror. It was impossible for it to dodge the feathers, so it could only avoid its vital parts. It twisted its body and used the hard scales on its back to take the attack head-on. The 900 feather blades hit the back of the jade scale flood dragon's waist. Only a roar of anger and wailing could be heard. Shattered golden feathers danced in the sky, mixed with jasper-like fragments. After the dust settled, a bowl-sized wound appeared on the jade scale flood dragon's waist, and more than a dozen scales around it were shattered. The wound was badly mutilated, and the white flood dragon's bones were exposed in the center. The spectators were also trembling with fear. The green spiritual energy on the jade scale flood dragon's body surged, and new flesh quickly grew on the wound, but the scales hadn't grown out yet. Wang Daoyuan naturally wouldn't give up the opportunity to beat a drowning dog. He controlled the golden rock phantom and scratched at the jade scale flood dragon's wound. No matter how agile the jade scale flood dragon was, it was still far inferior to the golden rock. Its wound was almost scratched several times. It could only keep casting spells to consume the golden rock phantom. Wang Daoyuan kept reducing the size of the golden rock to make it more agile. Soon, the golden rock phantom's wingspan was only 20 feet long. This time, the jade scale flood dragon could no longer dodge. Its wound was scratched by the golden rock, and it let out a painful roar. The golden rock's claws kept tearing at the wound. The jade scale flood dragon's body twitched, and drops of blood spilled on the river surface. Its head and tail rolled to the middle, entangling the golden rock. It wanted to rely on its physical strength to break the golden rock phantom. However, with this entanglement, the reverse scale on its neck was exposed. Wang Daoyuan injected a large amount of spiritual energy into the white tiger blade. The white tiger sword intent in his sea of consciousness was also integrated into the white tiger blade, and the white tiger's charm was activated. He used the cloud escape to attack the jade scale flood dragon's reverse scale. The onlooking cultivators all held their breaths and stared at the river surface with wide eyes. This was the highest level of life and death battle below the Golden Core realm. The outcome was about to be decided, and no one wanted to miss this scene. Wang Daoyuan arrived in an instant. The jade scale flood dragon was shocked by the white tiger's power and was stunned for half a breath. In this half a breath, the white tiger blade pierced through the gap of the reverse scale. A dragon's roar full of pain and despair resounded in the wilderness. The jade scale flood dragon let go of the golden rock phantom. As if the final radiance of the setting sun, it used all the strength in its body and whipped its tail at Wang Daoyuan. This fatal blow was extremely powerful, and the tail carried a sharp sound of thunder. It was definitely too late to dodge. Wang Daoyuan's mind moved, and the black tortoise shield appeared, releasing the black tortoise phantom. At the same time, he used the thick earth mystic handle to resist the blow. The black tortoise phantom was instantly broken, and the black tortoise shield was also sent flying, suffering heavy injuries. In front of the dragon tail, the thick earth mystic handle was like a piece of paper, dissipating in an instant. Wang Daoyuan was thrown more than 10,000 feet away, vomiting more than 10 mouthfuls of blood in the air. He was still holding the white tiger blade tightly. His body was sent flying, and he pulled out the white tiger blade. A large amount of blood spurted out from the jade scale flood dragon's reverse scale. After struggling for a few breaths, it fell into the Wanchuan River. Everyone present was shocked. Even the princes and princesses on the top floor of the hidden dragon pavilion, who were used to seeing golden core cultivators, were stunned. Chapter 488. The jade-scaled flood dragon's final attack was comparable to the full power of an early golden core cultivator. It broke through the black tortoise projection, the black tortoise shield, the thick earth mystic handle, and even injured Wang Daoyuan's internal organs through the blood-fire purple-gold armor. Fortunately, Wang Daoyuan's internal organs were strong enough. If it was an ordinary body refinement cultivator, they would definitely have been killed by this attack. Even so, Wang Daoyuan was still severely injured at this moment. His internal organs were almost ruptured, and his dantian and meridians were damaged in many places. He couldn't fight with others for a while, or else his internal organs might be ruptured and he might not even be able to keep his life. He ate a rain jade pill and slowly gathered his wood-type spiritual energy, using the life force within to heal his injuries. After more than 20 breaths of time, the surrounding audience finally recovered from their stupor. A Zifu realm cultivator with a scar on his face flew towards the jade-scaled flood dragon's corpse. Wang Daoyuan shouted angrily, "You can take the jade-scaled flood dragon's blood. But if you dare to touch the jade-scaled flood dragon's corpse, no matter what your background is, I will make you regret being born into this world." The scarred cultivator looked back at him and said disdainfully, "You reminded me. The value of your artifacts and inheritance isn't inferior to the jade-scaled flood dragons." Wang Daoyuan sneered, "You think I can't kill you now?" The scarred cultivator couldn't make up his mind. He had seen Wang Daoyuan's strength. As for how much strength he had left, he really didn't know. But in the face of great benefits, there would always be people who weren't afraid of death. He took out another flying sword and prepared to attack Wang Daoyuan. Zhou Jingyuan angrily rebuked, "Dao Yu is too much." The scarred cultivator looked at him and said, "The Zhou clan has never cared about the ownership of the dragon seed. Are you going to interfere now?" Zhou Jingyuan replied, "I can't do anything if you take the jade-scaled flood dragon. However, Wang Daoyu is my guest. If you touch him, you won't be able to leave the hidden dragon river alive, even if you're a golden core cultivator." The scarred cultivator's eyes flickered, unable to make up his mind. At this moment, a long sword flashing with blue lightning descended from the sky, pointing directly at the scarred cultivator. Sword kinesis attack was impossible to dodge. The scarred cultivator took out his intrinsic dermic artifact, his long sword, and forcefully received the attack. With a flash of lightning, the scarred cultivator's life-bound magic weapon, the long sword, was cut in half and the lightning pierced through his body. A rough voice sounded, "You dare to snatch the jade scale flood dragon with such little ability? Daoyu Wang, you owe me another favor." When Wang Daoyuan saw the magic tool descending from the sky, he knew that the Kuei sword had arrived. This fellow's brain was usually not very bright, but when it came to favors, he immediately became shrewd. Wang Daoyuan laughed and said, "Why are you everywhere? Even if you don't do anything, I can still kill him. It's just that my injuries are a little worse. How can this be considered a favor?" The Kuei sword landed on the river surface, revealing the face of a profiteer. Disciple of the Divine Weapon Pavilion's elder Lei Yan. "Are you trying to deny this favor of mine?" Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and said, Fine. I'll accept this favor. Where did a sword cultivator learn to be so cunning?" With that, he got up with difficulty and stepped on the river surface to retrieve the jade scale flood dragon's corpse. The scarred cultivator was still unconvinced and attacked Wang Daoyuan with his sword. Wang Daoyuan took out the dark sound soul-bearing bell. The sound wave attack was concentrated and attacked the scarred cultivator. The flying sword was shaken to the ground. The scarred cultivator's internal organs were severely injured and his soul was not light. In addition, he was heavily injured by the Kuei sword earlier. Seeing that he was not going to survive, he shouted with all his strength, "This is a demonic cultivator's magic weapon. Your spiritual energy is mixed. You must be a demonic cultivator." Before Wang Daoyuan could say anything, the Kuei sword scolded, "Bullsh**T. You said he's a demonic cultivator. That means my Tai sword sect's disciples are in cahoots with demonic cultivators? Wang Daoyu is Lei Yan's disciple. Do you think the Divine Weapon Pavilion is a demonic cultivator's sect?" Zhou Jingyuan laughed and said, "You're ignorant. Many of the 5 elements cultivation techniques passed down from ancient times are cultivated with the help of external objects. The spiritual energy cultivated by such techniques has some other attributes. I'm sure Wang Daoyu's technique is the same. Besides, Wang Daoyu's natal magic weapon is the 5 elements devil suppression seal. That's the nemesis of demonic cultivators. Demonic cultivators can't refine this set of magic weapons. And the white tiger blade and black tortoise shield Daoyu used just now are 2 of the 5 elements devil suppression seal." The scarred cultivator wanted to trick Wang Daoyuan before he died, but it was useless. He passed away before he could catch his breath. Seeing the scarred cultivator's fate, the other cultivators didn't dare to make a move. Wang Daoyuan put the corpse of the jade scale flood dragon into the universe ring he carried with him. Then, he took back the black tortoise shield that was sent flying and flew back to the top floor of the hidden dragon pavilion. The rogue cultivators watching from the side also quickly rushed to the place where the jade scale flood dragon died. There was a large amount of flood dragon blood essence there, which was also a rare treasure. Zhou Jingyuan cupped his hands and said, "Wang Daoyu is very capable. In a head-on battle, you killed the jade scale flood dragon that was about to break through to rank 4. I'm afraid there aren't many below golden core who can fight you." Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and said, "I don't dare. It's just a trick. If I hadn't hit the reverse scale, I wouldn't have been able to take down the jade scale flood dragon even if there were 2 more. My injuries aren't light. I'll go treat my injuries first. Goodbye." With that, he walked down the roof and returned to the small courtyard behind the hidden dragon pavilion. Kuei Jian was also a battle maniac. Of the 9 dragon species, only the jade scale flood dragon was killed. Although the other 8 dragon species were surrounded, they weren't dead yet. How could he give up this opportunity to fight? He fought with the silver flood dragon. Wang Daoyuan returned to the small courtyard and consumed another rain jade pill. His injuries were too severe this time. Even with pills and life force, he would need to recuperate for 10 days to half a month to recover. It seemed like he had to refine the Azure Dragon Pearl as soon as possible. With the Azure Dragon Pearl, it would be much easier to heal in the future. The Spirit Chi Tide could last for an entire day. Often, cultivators could form their golden core here, or demon beasts could break through to rank 4. The next morning, the Spirit Chi density quickly subsided and returned to the level of superior grade rank 3. However, this time, no one formed their golden core and no demon beast broke through to rank 4. The remaining 8 dragon species were also killed. No one dared to fight with Kuei-jian for the silver flood dragon, so it fell into his hands. Everyone dispersed. The matter of Wang Daoyuan killing the jade scale flood dragon also spread in all directions. Some busybodies even gave him the title of loose cultivator, but they hadn't reached a consensus yet. At dawn, Zhou Jingyuan came to visit. He entered the house and took out a few pill bottles. Daoyu's injuries are better? I brought some Zhou family's secret healing pills. I wonder if they can help? Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. My injuries are already mostly healed. I'll be fine after a few days of recuperation. Zhou Jingyuan put down the pill bottle and said with a smile, Fellow Daoist Wang should be able to tell that I invited all the heroes in order to recruit talents. I also know about Daoyu's situation. Jade Spring Peak has Heaven/Mountain Range to the east and Shanbei Demon Tribe to the north. If a beast tide happens, the Wang family will probably suffer heavy losses. As long as Daoyu is willing to stay in Zhou, I'll send flying warships to bring all the Wang family cultivators and mortals to Zhou. I believe the Netherworld sect won't dare to stop us. Also, I'll set aside a rank 4 spiritual mountain to settle the Wang family members. Wang Daoyuan shook his head. How can we give up the foundation of our ancestors so easily? Zhou Jingyuan's conditions could be said to be extremely generous. Anyone would be tempted. If he hadn't discovered the 5 elements secret realm and didn't know about the secret passage across Heaven/Mountain Range, he would have agreed. Zhou was located in the center of human territory. There were no threats from demon beasts, but there was also no room for expansion. If the Wang family moved to Zhou, they would at most be a stronger golden core family in the future. If they continued to stay in Jade Spring Peak and develop to the east of Heaven/Mountain Range, they would be the master of a region. Although this path wasn't easy, their future was brighter than living under someone else's roof. Zhou Jingyuan continued to persuade, My sister, Jingyan, has a good impression of Daoyu. If Daoyu stays in Zhou, he will have a chance to become Zhou's prince consort. Jingyan is my father's most beloved princess. In the future, if Daoyu makes great contributions, it's not impossible for him to be conferred the title of king. Chapter 489. Anyone would be tempted if this was a good plan. Unfortunately, Wang Daoyuan still did not like it. Zhou Jingyan was indeed a beauty that could captivate birds and beasts. But once he became the Zhou country's master, he would become a dog raised by the Zhou country. Not to mention that it was basically impossible to be conferred the title of king. Even if he really was conferred the title of king, what could he do? He would still have to depend on others. It was different in the Zhou country. The 3 major sects were really nothing much. In the future, when Wang Daoyuan formed his core and successfully became the upper echelon of the Netherworld sect, the Wang family would no longer be suppressed. With enough space to expand, the family could continue to grow and dominate Qingli County in the future, turning the outer area of the sky-beheading mountain range into their own backyard. As for the Netherworld sect's golden core cultivators, a vermilion bird fan and the 5 elements spiritual fire could teach them a lesson. For beauty, sacrificing a good future and becoming a dog in the Zhou country, that would be truly foolish. Wang Daoyuan was also perfected Lei Yan's disciple. The Zhou country would not make things difficult for him and there was no need to beat around the bush. He cupped his hands and said, If I was a person who kept my achievements, I would indeed not be able to refuse your highness's offer. But I am a person who does not know my place. To me, being conferred the title of king in the Zhou country is really better than staying in the Jade Spring Peak. After I form my golden core, the sky-beheading mountain range would just be my backyard. North of Mount Huiyan is my family's mine and spiritual beast garden. The territory that I have conquered is the true territory. Zhou Jingyuan sighed. Daoyu is not a fish in a pond. It seems that my Zhou country is a shallow pond. It is difficult to raise a true dragon like Daoyu. Wang Daoyuan smiled. The water in the Zhou country is not shallow. The Zhou country is located in the middle of the human territory. There is no invasion, but there is also no opportunity to expand in all directions. The entire Zhou country is like a lake without waves, but what I like are stormy waves. I have long wanted to visit the Zhou country, now I would like to ask your highness for help. Hearing this, Zhou Jingyuan was interested. Kuei Jian's status was also not low, but he valued Wang Daoyuan's favor. Now that Wang Daoyuan had asked him to do something for him, he owed him a favor. He hurriedly said, "Daoyu Wang, if you have any requests, just tell me. As long as I can do it, I won't refuse." It's still for the development of the family. Wang Daoyuan sighed. The Wang family is located in the desolate outskirts and there are very few ordinary people. Their various inheritances are mainly about cultivation. Mortals were weak and fell sick easily. The state of Zhao didn't have a medical inheritance that could treat ordinary people, so the number of ordinary people grew slowly. Therefore, I would like to ask your highness to help me collect some medical legacies that can treat mortal illnesses. Zhou Jingyuan chuckled and said, "That's a small matter. A mortal's medical inheritance isn't anything precious, and it won't be worth a few spirit stones even if it's sold outside. Daoyu, wait here for a few days. I'll get someone to collect and sort it out. As for things like medicine, the Wang clan is close to the heavenly/mountain range and doesn't lack such things. I won't worry about Daoyu." The two chatted for a while, then Zhou Jingyuan bid farewell and left. After Kuei Jian killed the silver flood dragon, he stayed in the hidden dragon pavilion and asked for a small courtyard. He stayed right next to Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan needed to treat his injuries, so he didn't disturb him. After staying there for a few days, he felt bored and left the hidden dragon market, traveling to other places to explore. More than 10 days later, Wang Daoyuan's injuries were more or less healed. The black tortoise shield was heavily damaged by the jade flood dragon's pure physical strength. Only the materials were damaged, but the tool patterns weren't damaged. It could recover by itself slowly. Zhou Jingyuan also made a personal trip to deliver the medical legacy. The accumulation of tens of thousands of years in the state of Zhou was indeed extraordinary. There were dozens of beast skin books in the medical inheritance. When stacked together, they were more than 3 meters thick. It would take a lot of effort to sort them out. However, he didn't need to worry about it. When he brought it back to the clan, the cultivators in the clan's general affairs hall would take care of it. After this trip to the state of Zhou, he got what he wanted. There was no need to continue staying, so he bid farewell to Zhou Jingyuan. Zhou Jingyuan wanted to send a flying warship to send him back to the state of Zhao, but he refused. The jade flood dragon that Wang Daoyuan killed was a dragon species with an extremely high concentration of dragon blood. The materials of the jade flood dragon were all extremely precious. With the shameless style of the Netherworld sect, they would definitely use all kinds of reasons to make him hand over the flood dragon's corpse. Therefore, he first went to the treasured Cauldron Mountain and stayed in his master's cave for a few days. Then he took the flying ship and returned to the clear glass market. This way, when the upper echelons of the Netherworld sect asked for the jade flood dragon's corpse, he could also say that he gave it to his master to help refine magic tools. Things were as he expected. Just as he flew to the southern end of the Clear Glass County, he received a message from Luo Jiuyo, ordering him to immediately rush to the Netherworld sect without delay. Under the eaves, he had to lower his head. After receiving the message, Wang Daoyuan left the Divine Weapon Pavilion's flying ship and rode the Windfire flying kite, rushing to the Netherworld sect's mountain gate. After Wang Daoyuan entered the mountain gate, he walked along the stone steps toward the Great Assembly Hall. After entering the hall, he bowed and said, "Subordinate Wang Daoyuan greets the sect master." Luo Jiuyo's face was full of smiles. "Daoyuan, no need to be so courteous. You've been traveling in the southern wasteland for more than 30 years. Looks like your harvest is not small. To be able to confront the jade flood dragon head-on and kill it. To be able to fight with a half-divine beast on the same level, you're a top genius. It's also a blessing for my Netherworld sect to have an elder like you." Wang Daoyuan hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Sect master is too kind. I was just lucky to stab the gap between the jade flood dragon's reverse scale. Even so, I was still seriously injured by the jade flood dragon's fatal blow. If not for this luck, I'm afraid I would have lost my life. Luo Jiuyo smiled and said, Dao Yuan, no need to be so modest. To be able to force out the Jade Flood Dragon's weakness is also your ability. I wonder if the Jade Flood Dragon's corpse is still here? A dignified sect master was actually so shameless, asking for the Jade Flood Dragon's corpse just like that. Wang Daoyuan cursed Luo Jiuyo's 18 generations of ancestors hundreds of times in his heart. However, his face was still very calm. He hurriedly apologized and said, replying to Sect Master, before I came back, I asked Master to help me refine a few magic artifacts. The Jade Flood Dragon's corpse is in my master's hands. I only have some scales and Flood Dragon blood on me. Before Luo Jiuyo said anything, a young-looking middle-stage Zifu realm cultivator opened his mouth and questioned, that Jade Flood Dragon's pseudo-dragon pearl should still be in your hands, right? Wang Daoyuan was furious at that time. This meant that he wanted him to hand over the pseudo-dragon pearl. The matter of him refining the 5 elements devil subduing seal was basically known to everyone. The pseudo-dragon pearl that he obtained after risking his life, this grandson wanted to take it away with just a sentence. A life-bound magic artifact was related to one's Dao path. To be able to make such a request, one could see how shameless this person was. Wang Daoyuan didn't hold back. He glanced at him and said coldly, I killed the Jade Flood Dragon and almost lost my life in order to obtain the pseudo-dragon pearl to refine my life-bound magic artifact. Dao, you want to take away something that I exchanged with my life with just a sentence? If you really need the pseudo-dragon pearl, why not go to Zhou's Qianlong River? You can go to the Arctic Icefield or Myriad Dragon Mountain to hunt dragon species now. The young cultivator was rebuked and didn't say anything else. If he had the ability, he would have gone already. Luo Jiuyo mediated, Honglai is young and ignorant. Daoyuan, please don't take offense. How much Jade Flood Dragon's blood essence and scales do you have? I'm willing to take out some treasures to exchange with you. This guy's name was Honglai, which was the same generation as Luo Hongming. He was most likely from the Luo clan. This guy questioned him like this, which basically represented the Luo clan's attitude. Wang Daoyuan replied, after I killed the Jade Flood Dragon, I was also seriously injured. I didn't collect the corpse in time and lost a lot of blood. Now, I still have more than 150 kilograms of unrefined Flood Dragon blood and 500 scales. Luo Jiuyo nodded and said, that's not a small amount. I'll give you 3 million contribution points. You can exchange for any tier 3 spirit items in the sect's warehouse. Wang Daoyuan took out a few storage bags and bowed. Thank you for the reward, Sect Master. Chapter 490. A purple mansion elder stood up, took a few storage pouches and handed them to Luo Jiuyo. Luo Jiuyo opened the storage pouches and carefully looked at the things inside. He nodded and said, as expected of a green-scale flood dragon that's about to break through to the 4th rank. Ordinary blood that hasn't been refined yet has such powerful strength. In the 30 years since you left, the Supreme Grand Elder, Nether Sea Immortal, has passed away. Our Nether sect has lost a late gold core stage cultivator. Fortunately, the former refining hall master, Gu Wangzong, formed his Aurus core and the number of Aurus core stage cultivators in the sect didn't decrease. Now, Gu Wangzong is the deputy sect master of the Netherworld sect. The former refining hall master, Yin Chang, has been promoted to refining hall master. The position of deputy hall master is vacant. Your cultivation has reached the late Zifu stage and your refining skills aren't weak. You're a suitable candidate. However, some elders feel that it's not appropriate to promote you to deputy hall master since you've always been in an idle position. Wang Daoyuan definitely wasn't willing to be the deputy hall master of the refining hall. When Yin Chang was the deputy hall master, he was busy all day long. How could he have time to cultivate? He hurriedly cupped his hands and said, thank you for your kindness, sect master. However, the sect rules can't be broken. I'm still inexperienced and can't convince everyone. It's better to let other elders take over. Luo Jiuyo nodded with satisfaction. Dao Yuan, you're really thinking for the sect. Now that you've reached the late Sifu stage, you're not suitable to be an idle elder. How about this? You'll first be the guardian of the sect's property for a few decades. When you have experience, you'll be the deputy hall master of the refining hall. The situation in Shanbei has been tense these past few years. We need someone powerful to oversee the situation. You'll be the guardian of Guiyan Market. Are you willing? This was an obvious suppression. Beiyuan Market only had a third-level low-grade spirit vein with no attributes. It wasn't enough for a mid-Zifu realm cultivator to cultivate. Wang Daoyuan was a late Zifu realm cultivator. His next goal was to prepare for the Oris core stage. If he was placed in Guiyan Market, it would seriously affect his cultivation speed. Luo Jiuyo said to let him gain experience, but it wouldn't be the case after he took office. If he squatted in Guiyan Market for 200 years, the golden period of cultivation would be over. It would be difficult for him to form his Oris core in the future. Even if he succeeded in forming his Azoth core, would the future of forming his Azoth core be the same as that of forming his Azoth core at 200? However, Wang Daoyuan did not mind. He had plenty of resources. The new batch of purple dragon pattern ginseng had also matured, and he had as many purple dragon pattern ginseng as he wanted. Even if he was thrown into a place devoid of spiritual energy, it would not affect his cultivation speed. If he stayed in Guiyan Market, he would have the authority of the Guardian, and the ability to stir up the situation in Shanbei would be stronger. The Guardian Envoy was equivalent to the governor of the border and had quite a bit of autonomy. When he was free, he could also chat with Zhou Luan. Although he could only watch and not do anything, it was much better than staying in the mountain gate. He pretended to be reluctant, but he still nodded and said, "This subordinate will follow sect master's instructions." Luo Jiuyo nodded in satisfaction. "You killed the jade-scaled flood dragon this time, and your strength is comparable to a peak Zifu realm cultivator. You should have the title of unaffiliated cultivator. You made a name for yourself by killing the jade-scaled flood dragon. The density of the jade-scaled flood dragon's blood is extremely high. You can even call it a dragon. Why don't you call yourself dragon-slaying rogue cultivator?" Luo Jiuyo chose this title for a reason. The title of the strongest Grand Elder in Wanling sect was Imperial Dragon Jinren, while his own title was Dragon Slayer. This was obviously going against him. However, Wang Daoyuan had no problem with this title. The jade-scaled flood dragon was publicly recognized as a half-divine beast, a natural flood dragon. Imperial Dragon Jinren's green flood dragon was only a snake that transformed into a flood dragon. In terms of appearance, it was about the same as the silver flood dragon that appeared at the mouth of the Qianlong River. In terms of potential, it was even more incomparable to the jade-scaled flood dragon. If he could be called Imperial Dragon Jinren, then Wang Daoyuan would naturally have no problem getting the title of Dragon Slayer after killing the jade-scaled flood dragon. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands. "Thank you for the title, Sect Master." Luo Jiuyo smiled. "Since you have no objections, then I'll call you that in the future. You left home for 30 years and were summoned by me as soon as you arrived in Qingli County. I won't keep you any longer. Go and hand over your duties, then return to your family to take a look. There are a few Purple Mansion elders overseeing Guiyan Market, so there's no big issue for now. It's fine if you go a few years later." Wang Daoyuan bowed. "Thank you, Sect Master. I'll take my leave." After saying this, he left the conference hall. He had many things to do. He needed to go to the General Affairs Hall to receive the 3 million contribution points that Luo Jiuyo promised. The Guiyan Market Guardian was under the jurisdiction of the Guardian Hall. He still needed to go to the Guardian Hall to receive his appointment. After that, he went to the treasury to exchange for some purple rhythm pills. The Netherworld sect didn't have many purple rhythm pills. They restricted cultivators from exchanging them, and the price was set very high, 10,000 contribution points per pill. Wang Daoyuan only exchanged for 50 pills, spending 500,000 contribution points. He didn't have much choice in refining materials and magic tools. He didn't have much use for level 3 magic tools. After exchanging for the purple rhythm pills, he went to the technique hall. Previously, he received guidance from his master and learned that after comprehending the charm, he could use level 4 magic techniques without condensing the phantom of a divine beast. He had already comprehended the charm of the white tiger, so he could cultivate a magic technique related to the white tiger. Unfortunately, the Netherworld sect was very strict with level 4 magic techniques. Unless one made a great contribution, they couldn't be exchanged for. Wang Daoyuan had just offered up the jade-scaled flood dragon's blood essence and scales, but he still couldn't exchange for them. This suppression was really comprehensive. Level 3 magic techniques couldn't enter his eyes, so he left the technique hall empty-handed. He rode the firestorm kite back to the Jade Spring Peak. There were also great changes in the Clearglass County. The Yang family's ancestor, Yang Yong, had already passed away. Only Yang Yulin was left as an idle elder. The Wang family could be said to be the absolute overlord in the northern and central regions of the Clearglass County. After Wang Daoyuan returned to the Jade Spring Peak, his third brother, Wang Daocheng, came out to welcome him. He had already established his Violet Palace realm. However, he was the only Violet Palace realm cultivator on the Jade Spring Peak. Currently, the most important person to the family was Wang Daoyuan. The second person wasn't the 12th uncle Wang Shui, but the third brother Wang Daocheng. Although his cultivation talent was much weaker than the 12th uncle's, it wasn't bad. His value was mainly in managing the family. Wang Daoyuan and the 12th uncle both had foresight, but didn't like to deal with practical matters. The third brother had a good foresight and was proficient in practical matters. He was the best candidate for the family head. After establishing his Violet Palace realm, he could still lead the family for another 300 years. After forming his gold core, with the third brother at the helm, the family's development would be much faster. Wang Daoyuan smiled. Congratulations, third brother, for establishing your Violet Palace realm. Wang Daocheng shook his head. There's nothing to congratulate. Our Wang family has 4 Violet Palace realm cultivators. My Violet Palace realm is only 2 inches long, and my Violet Palace realm phenomenon is only the Firewing Quail. It's much weaker than 5th uncle's dragonfish. Even so, I used the yin-yang purple jade you left behind. It was reasonable for an 8-inch primary spiritual root to have a Violet Palace realm phenomenon. However, the Violet Palace realm phenomenon was indeed a bit weak. The Firewing Quail was a fire attribute demonic bird of the Phoenix clan. However, its bloodline was extremely thin, and it could barely be considered a phoenix. Its status was similar to the Dragon clan serpents. Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and said, "It's nothing. I don't have any use for the yin-yang purple jade. It's always a good thing for the family to have another Violet Palace realm. By the way, the 12th uncle isn't at the Jade Spring Peak. Did something happen?" Wang Daocheng sighed and said, "It's not that there's a problem, but that he's been assigned a position. The 12th uncle has taken over the position of Gold Goose City's guardian and is overseeing Gold Goose City. The Netherworld sect's intention to suppress our Wang family is becoming more and more obvious. The Gold Goose City spirit vein was only a low-grade Tier 3 metal spirit vein. Putting the 12th uncle, a mid-stage Violet Palace realm cultivator, there was no doubt that it was a blatant suppression." Wang Daoyuan sighed and said, "Not only that, I've also been appointed as the guardian of Guiyan City. Now that the situation in Shanbei is unstable, the 12th uncle and I have been placed on the front lines. Once the demons and half-demons start fighting, our Wang family will be cannon fodder. There aren't many outsiders left, and they won't be able to make any big waves. Our Wang family has 4 Violet Palaces, and I'm a late-stage Violet Palace realm cultivator. We're much stronger than the Jin family. The Netherworld sect is starting to suppress our family." Chapter 491. Wang Daocheng wasn't too worried about the Netherworld sect's suppression. He smiled and said, "Fortunately, we made preparations beforehand and sent some talented clansmen to the elemental mystery realm. These years, the clan has been developing spirit fields. The cultivation resources of the clansmen below the Violet Palace realm are completely self-sufficient. The various resources produced by the clan are sold in the major markets without being affected. Apart from the Violet Palace realm cultivators having a hard time, the clan can still operate normally." Wang Daoyuan took out a large stack of beast skin books and said, "It's fine as long as the clan operates normally. This time, I went to the Zhou Empire and asked the Zhou Empire's crown prince for some medical inheritances that can treat mortal diseases. Ordinary people can practice them and give them to the General Affairs Hall to train doctors. The growth of our ordinary clansmen is too slow, and the biggest reason is because of diseases. If we can train a large number of doctors, the number of ordinary clansmen will increase rapidly in the future. Wang Daochang was overjoyed to see these medical inheritances. As the clan leader, he understood the situation of the clan's mortals the best. He also understood the value of medical inheritances the most. Wang Daoyuan asked, "I haven't been in charge of the clan's situation for decades. How many cultivators are there now?" Wang Daochang replied, "The clan's development in these decades has been very good. There are 800 to 900 cultivators in the clan. The original word generation left by the ancestor has been used up. Fifth great-uncle added another word generation. They are profound, enlightening, righteous, evergreen. Now, it's the profound word generation. There are more than 500 people in the profound, enlightening, and righteous clansmen, and there are nearly 300,000 ordinary clansmen. Now that we have these medical inheritances, the growth of ordinary clansmen will be much faster in the future." When Wang Daoyuan had just left the mountain, there were only 60 or so cultivators in the clan. Now there were nearly 1,000. He was also very happy and asked, "You are the most suitable person to be the clan leader among the few generations of our clan. With you in charge of the clan, I have nothing to worry about. All right, have you found your life-bound magic weapon? If not, I can help you make one." Wang Daochang replied, "Don't worry. Zhao Liang is already a third-stage weapon refiner. With his help, my life-bound magic weapon has already been refined." Wang Daoyuan took out 50 purple rhythm pills and said, "The Jade Spring Peak Spirit Vein is not suitable for your cultivation. Purple rhythm pills cannot be missing." However, he had to hide his cultivation from the outside world. Otherwise, he would be suppressed even more. "I still need to refine the Azure Dragon Pearl, so I won't bother with family matters." Wang Daochang declined, "With my talent, the chances of me forming my core are slim. You should keep it for yourself." Wang Daoyuan smiled, "Don't worry about it. I obtained quite a few violet dragon pattern ginseng when I was out adventuring. I can refine enough violet dragon pattern ginseng to raise a few Violet Palace Realm cultivators to the peak of the Violet Palace Realm." Wang Daochang did not decline and accepted the purple rhythm pill. Wang Daoyuan returned to his abode and prepared to sacrifice the Azure Dragon Pearl. In the space of the Spirit Pearl, the two avatars of the refiners had already dealt with the corpse of the Jade Scale Flood Dragon. When he returned to the Treasure Tripod Mountain from the Zhou Nation, he had indeed left some materials for his master. "I've left more than 500 kilograms of Flood Dragon blood for my younger brother to refine his body. He still had more than 500 dragon scales left. With his master's help, he could definitely refine them into armor." The Flood Dragon's remaining Flood Dragon blood weighed more than 1,000 kilograms. Flood Dragon blood was an excellent material for refining one's body. However, Wang Daoyuan's body refinement path did not require the Flood Dragon's blood. The Flood Dragon's blood could be used to refine blood essence and nurture the Blood Lotus Seed. It could also be used to refine pills to increase the density of the dragon's blood. He still had more than 1,000 dragon scales left, and the most important reverse scale was also in his hands. This reverse scale was slightly larger than ordinary Flood Dragon scales. It was about 3 inches in diameter and looked like golden glass. Its toughness was comparable to 4th grade low-grade Grand Unity Gold. If he hadn't stabbed his sword into the gap of the reverse scale, he might not have been able to break through its defense. There were complicated patterns on the reverse scale that seemed to be hiding some information. However, Wang Daoyuan couldn't understand them. He had cut off the dragon horn and kept it to refine Dharma artifacts in the future. His avatar had already taken out the pseudo-dragon pearl and used the Crimson Sun True Flame to remove the impurities. It was now being nurtured in the life spiritual fire. After the treatment, the pseudo-dragon pearl was about 6 inches in diameter. It was green all over, like a jasper bead, with a strong wood attribute spiritual energy fluctuation. Although the remaining part of the flood dragon was also very precious, Wang Daoyuan did not plan to refine any more Dharma artifacts. Instead, he buried it next to the wood attribute spiritual vein. Legend had it that after the death of a true dragon, its corpse could turn into a spiritual vein. The concentration of the blood of the flood dragon was not low. He did not expect it to turn into a spiritual vein. As long as it could be integrated into the spiritual vein, the wood attribute spiritual vein could carry a trace of dragon qi. Due to the lack of dragon qi in the spiritual pearl, the planted jade dragon algae could only barely survive. If he could make the wood attribute spiritual vein carry a trace of dragon qi, the jade dragon algae could evolve in the future. Those Qing River carps might also become dragon species. Although the value of a dead flood dragon's corpse was extremely high, it was still far inferior to a living dragon species. Unfortunately, dragon species were extremely difficult to subdue, especially this kind of dragon that was born as a flood dragon. Otherwise, Wang Daoyuan would really be reluctant to kill it. After the corpse of the flood dragon was dealt with, Wang Daoyuan began to refine the Azure Dragon Pearl. The flood dragon was originally from the Azure Dragon bloodline, so its pseudo-dragon pearl was the most suitable for refining the Azure Dragon Pearl. The Azure Dragon Pearl was also the easiest of the 5 natal Dharma artifacts to refine. It only needed a pseudo-dragon pearl, no supplementary materials, and no forging. After removing the impurities, it would be absorbed into the body, condense the tool pattern, and the rest would be nourishment. In just half a year, Wang Daoyuan had completed the refinement of the Azure Dragon Pearl. Since the Flood Dragon was an upper-grade rank 3 Dharma artifact and the Pseudo-Dragon Pearl was also an upper-grade rank 3 Dharma artifact, the Azure Dragon Pearl refined was naturally an upper-grade rank 3 Dharma artifact. He took out a fierce blood pig and used the Azure Dragon Pearl to extract its vitality. A white mist floated out of the fierce blood pig, and half a breath later, it collapsed on the ground. He put the fierce blood pig back into the spiritual pearl and carefully observed the Azure Dragon Pearl. He found that there was an additional wisp of white mist inside. This wisp of mist was nothing in the Azure Dragon Pearl. In order to fill up the Azure Dragon Pearl, he needed more than 100 wisps of mist. Wang Daoyuan tried to use this wisp of mist to heal himself. He took out another fierce blood pig and made a 1-foot-long cut on its body. Then, he activated the Azure Dragon Pearl. After a breath, the wound was completely healed, and only 1/10 of the mist was used. He injured the fierce blood pig and activated the Azure Dragon Pearl to heal it. This time, the effect was not as good, but it was still much better than when he didn't have the Azure Dragon Pearl. When he used the Azure Dragon Pearl to heal himself, he didn't need to take it out at all. The Azure Dragon Pearl directly released vitality from the Dantian, and its healing effect should be much better. He could also control the Azure Dragon Pearl to refine the white mist and achieve the effect of nourishing Dharma artifacts. In this way, even if he had more white mist than he could use, it wouldn't go to waste. Wang Daoyuan's wood attribute spiritual energy had some vitality. The Azure Dragon Pearl could also extract some white mist from his wood attribute spiritual energy. In his original sacrificial refining method, there was a spell to release the Azure Dragon's phantom and absorb vitality. Wang Daoyuan also tried to condense a 3-foot-long Azure Dragon's phantom. There wasn't enough space in the cave, otherwise, he could condense a 200-foot-long Azure Dragon's phantom. The Azure Dragon's phantom could absorb the vitality of multiple targets at the same time, and its killing range was about 100 feet. With this thing, he wouldn't be afraid of getting hurt when he went out in the future. As long as he wasn't beaten to the point of losing the ability to activate Dharma artifacts, he could quickly recover a certain amount of combat power. A few days after refining the Azure Dragon Pearl, he received a message from Zhou Luan. "You haven't come back for more than 30 years, and you don't know how to pay me a visit." The headquarters sent another yin-yang purple jade. "If you don't want it, I'll use it to train my subordinates." Wang Daoyuan naturally didn't mind having more yin-yang purple jade. On the surface, the Wang family had more than a dozen foundation establishment cultivators, but in fact, there were nearly 30. There were 2 peak foundation establishment cultivators. One was his second brother, Wang Daoxing, and the other was his 27th brother, Wang Daojin. There were also 5 or 6 late-stage foundation establishment cultivators, and they could use as many treasures as they wanted. Chapter 492. Wang Daoyuan immediately replied to Zhou Luan, telling her to keep the yin-yang purple jade and that he would go there right away. He left the jade spring peak on his sword, hid his aura, and headed for the Jade Pine Mountain Cave. Then he sneaked away from the cave. Along the way, he checked the situation of Fallen Dragon Ridge. Now, the entire Fallen Dragon Ridge had been taken over by the clan. There were 5 foundation establishment cultivators guarding this 1,000-kilometer-long mountain range. Now, the clan already had 3 superior second-rank formation masters. His 26th uncle, Wang Shouzhe, was quite talented in formations and was now a 3rd-rank formation master. Fallen Dragon Ridge was also covered with formations. The entire Fallen Dragon Ridge was developed, and it wouldn't be difficult to support more than 1,000 cultivators. The only flaw was that the spirit veins in Fallen Dragon Ridge were only 2nd-rank superior and couldn't be used to set up 3rd-rank formations. Once 3rd-rank demonic beasts invaded, only Zifu realm cultivators could be dispatched. Wang Daoyuan didn't have time to improve his formation skills, so he was still a 3rd-rank formation master. If he could improve his formation skills to 3rd-rank superior, he could extract the origin of other spirit veins to replenish the spirit veins in Fallen Dragon Ridge. If too much of the origin of a spirit vein was extracted, its grade would drop. The Netherworld sect had extracted a large amount of the origin of Jade Spring Peak's spirit vein, causing it to drop from 4th-rank middle to 3rd-rank superior. However, the foundation of Jade Spring Peak's spirit vein was still there. If he could extract the origin of a high-rank water attribute spirit vein to replenish the spirit vein of Jade Spring Peak, it wouldn't be impossible to restore the spirit vein to its previous level. Of course, he definitely couldn't do it now because the Netherworld sect was suppressing the Wang family. If he wanted to restore Jade Spring Peak's spirit vein, he would have to wait until he formed his core. After taking a big detour, he arrived at the northern mountain branch of Guiyan Market. After entering Zhou Luan's cave, the door was immediately closed, and the formation inside the cave was instantly activated. Then, a fiery red long sword flew towards him, pointing at his forehead. Wang Daoyuan clasped the tip of the sword with his right hand. "Hallmaster, we haven't seen each other for more than 30,000 years. Isn't it a little inappropriate to fight as soon as we meet?" Zhou Luan walked out from the backyard of the Immortal's cave and coldly snorted, "I heard that the princess of Zhou country is a famous beauty of the present age. You lecher, you can't move after seeing Zhou Jingyan, right? Why didn't he stay in the Zhou country to be a concubine? She didn't like you?" Wang Daoyuan laughed and said, "What a strong smell of jealousy." Zhou Luan glared at him. "Nothing good comes out of a dog's mouth. My nephew is stupid enough to think that you are a gentleman." Wang Daoyuan was a little confused and asked, "What nephew?" Zhou Luan replied, "I'm also a member of the Zhou family. According to seniority, Zhou Jingyuan is my nephew. This brat is really too stupid, treating you as a gentleman and saying that to everyone." Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan laughed and said, "Zhou Jingyuan really has a discerning eye for heroes. He knows that I'm a gentleman. We're both surnamed Zhou, but your eyes are far from mine. I didn't expect you and Emperor Zhou to be related by seniority. This brat even wants me to be his brother-in-law. The next time I see him, I'll teach this big nephew well as his uncle." Zhou Luan's face turned red and spat, "Lecher, shameless, you still dare to call yourself a gentleman." Wang Daoyuan complained, "I've lived here for more than 10 years and nothing happened. Am I not a gentleman? If I'm not a gentleman, I'm afraid that in these 10 years, I would have given birth to a Kong bed. I really don't have romantic affairs. I don't deserve the reputation of being a romantic." Zhou Luan saw how thick his skin was and knew that personality attacks were ineffective. She turned to ridicule, "Cowardly rat, do you have the ability?" Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was unhappy. "Hallmaster, you have to be clear. I'll tolerate it if you say that I'm a cowardly rat. I won't tolerate it if you say that I don't have the ability." Seeing that he was anxious, Zhou Luan smiled proudly. As far as I know, body-refining cultivators squeeze out their body's potential and cripple a lot of them. In just a little over 30 years, your body has become so strong. Don't tell me you also practice this kind of cultivation technique? Whether or not I have the ability, words don't count. Wang Daoyuan said angrily, if it wasn't for core formation, how could I let you be so rampant? Zhou Luan was a bit puzzled. Ordinary people don't have a primordial yang body, so core formation isn't affected much. In that case, you also have a special constitution. Why can't I see it? Wang Daoyuan was stunned. In that case, you have a special constitution? That's right. The Zhou clan has the bloodline of phoenixes and humans with the bloodline of divine beasts, so it's easy for them to have special constitutions. In addition, your family's ancestors produced a lot of Yuanian cultivators with divine abilities, so it's normal for you to have a special constitution. My special constitution was crippled before I was born, so I don't look any different from ordinary people. When it comes to core formation, the effect is still very big. Zhou Luan said thoughtfully, a special constitution crippled before you were born? A postnatal spiritual body? Postnatal spiritual bodies have very strong comprehension abilities. No wonder you can master all 4 Daoists and learn a lot of magic techniques without affecting your cultivation speed. Wang Daoyuan answered, okay, don't make wild guesses. I really do have a postnatal spiritual body. Keep the yin-yang purple jade for me. I still have important things to do. Do you need anything else? Zhou Luan looked disappointed. You just came back. Where are you going? Are you still going to the southern wasteland? Wang Daoyuan took out a jade talisman and gave it to her. It's not far this time. You can contact me with this. Those bastards from the Netherworld sect suppressed the Wang family and arranged for me to be the guardian of Guyan Market. After I take over, I can't leave for too long. There are some important things I need to do before I take over. After he finished speaking, he looked at Zhou Luan with a mischievous smile. How about you accompany me there? That place is quite suitable for fire attribute cultivators to cultivate. With a stunning beauty accompanying me, I won't be bored. Zhou Luan ignored his verbal flirting. Her face was full of joy as she took pleasure in his misfortune. Whenever you have free time, you run all over the place. Now you've been restrained by the Netherworld sect. However, your perception abilities are really bad. You can't even see through my cultivation level. My spiritual power cultivation has no room for improvement now. What I lack is comprehension. With comprehension, I can quickly reach the peak of the Zifu realm. Without any comprehension, no matter how good the cultivation ground was, it was useless. The branch can't be left without a Zifu realm cultivator to guard it for a long time. The Vice Hall Master ran away, so I have to take care of the affairs of the entire branch. Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense and said with a smile, when I came in, my attention was elsewhere. I didn't pay attention to Hall Master's cultivation level. Zhou Luan saw that he was staring at her, so she took back her life-bound magic artifact and was about to cut him. Wang Daoyuan immediately admitted defeat. Hall Master, please show mercy. I just didn't expect you to cultivate so fast. Zhou Luan said proudly, with the face-retaining pill, I don't need to use my vital essence to maintain my appearance. Coupled with the resources I got from you, my cultivation speed is naturally fast. I don't need the purple rhythm pill and dragon heart fruit now. Give me 200 jars of spirit peach dew and 20 black jade lotus seeds in exchange. I can give you the yin-yang purple jade. Wang Daoyuan didn't even think about it and gave it to her. Zhou Luan took out the yin-yang purple jade and handed it to him. You usually have to bargain. Why are you so straightforward this time? Wang Daoyuan took the yin-yang purple jade and said with a smile, we'll be family sooner or later. Why are you so clear about it? By the way, don't fan the flames between the demon race and half-demon race in the future. Now that our Netherworld sect is suppressing them, once things get out of hand, our family will be cannon fodder. After flirting with Zhou Luan a few more times, he left the underground branch. Hiding his figure, he took a big circle of tens of thousands of miles and came to the karst cave where he was looking for the Gui water nether flame. In the deepest part of the karst cave, There was a ready-made magma lake that could be used to condense the fire attribute pseudo-spiritual fire. The Gui water nether spring could condense the water attribute pseudo-spiritual fire. In the space of the spiritual pearl, the Tai golden flame was about to reach the third level of the upper grade. The 5 spiritual fires were of the same grade. After the pseudo-spiritual fire was condensed, he could refine the spiritual fire into his body. Now, without refining the spiritual fire, his cultivation speed was comparable to that of a 2 spiritual root cultivator with an 8-inch main spiritual root. After refining the spiritual fire, his cultivation speed was definitely not inferior to that of a heavenly spiritual root. A heavenly spiritual root cultivator could form a golden core without relying on core formation spiritual objects. Chapter 493. When Wang Daoyuan arrived at the underground cave 1,000 miles southeast of the mysterious Yin Spring, he couldn't help but sigh. Back then, he was only in the early stage of foundation establishment when he was cornered by that Wu brat in the mysterious Yin market. Now that more than 100 years had passed, he was already in the late stage of the Purple Mansion realm. He wondered if those people from the mysterious Yin market were still there. With the soul-chasing bee leading the way, he soon arrived at the cave where he found the earth vein spiritual essence. Back then, he used the earth wall technique to seal the stone wall, which wasn't very strong. Without using the dust-returning flame, he punched a hole in the stone wall. He walked into the stone room and looked at the place where the earth vein spiritual essence was produced. After more than 100 years, it still didn't produce a drop of earth vein spiritual essence. The earth vein spiritual essence here wasn't very useful to him anymore. There weren't any non-elemental spiritual veins in the spiritual pearl. It was useless to cut off the stalactite and take it away. He decided to come again when he had a non-elemental spiritual vein in the future. His target was the lava lake in the stone room. The lava mainly contained fire and earth spiritual energy, with a small amount of other spiritual energy. Wang Daoyuan drew out a wisp of red sun primordial fire and a wisp of dust-returning flame from the spiritual pearl and placed them in the lava. The lava under the entire Beiyuan Xiuxian was connected. The fire and earth elemental spiritual energy within it could be said to be inexhaustible. Moreover, using spiritual fire to burn the lava was much faster than burning stones. The 2 flames burned fiercely as soon as they came into contact with the lava and soon covered the entire lava lake. The red sun primordial fire couldn't burn away from the lava lake. On the other hand, if the dust-returning flame was left alone, the surrounding stone walls would suffer. Wang Daoyuan constantly drew out the essence of the dust-returning flame. The part of it was used for cultivation, but most of it was used to nourish the earth's spiritual fire. Half a month later, he took out a sesame-sized red sun primordial fire from the spiritual pearl and threw it into the lava lake. The fire seed absorbed the essence of the flame to stabilize itself. The red sun primordial fire could only burn in the lava lake, which was only a few acres in size. The fire seed could draw spiritual energy from the surrounding flames. It only took 2 hours for the fire seed to stabilize. This speed was dozens of times faster than when they were burning the stone walls and mineral veins. Wang Daoyuan also took out the earth attribute pseudo-spiritual fire and placed it in the lava lake. He originally wanted to leave after condensing the pseudo-spiritual fire, but now he was somewhat reluctant to do so. The growth speed of these 2 pseudo-spirit fires far exceeded that of the wood attribute pseudo-spirit fire. It just so happened that this place was very safe. When the pseudo-spiritual fire was formed, he would refine the spiritual fire here. After staying here for a year, the fire seed of the fire-attributed pseudo-spirit flame was already the size of 2 sesame seeds. The fire seed of the earth attribute pseudo-spiritual fire was already half the size of a green bean. He did not need to care about the 2 pseudo-spiritual fires. Every day, other than cultivating, he would use the communication jade talisman to flirt with Zhou Luan. There was also good news in the space of the spirit pearl. The Tai golden flame had finally become an upper-grade level 3 spiritual fire after burning through more than 10,000 kilograms of black iron crystals. As long as he could condense the water attribute pseudo-spiritual fire, he could refine the spiritual fire. the red-feathered crow finally grew a golden red feather on its tail. Its spirit energy fluctuation was very strong, and it also had a rich pure yang qi and fire attribute spirit energy. However, the feather had just grown out and was only about 3 inches long. It was far from enough to refine the vermilion bird fan. However, since it had already grown out, it was only a matter of time. He just had to wait slowly. Wang Daoist took out his clone Cui Ming from the space of the spirit pearl. He asked him to watch the 2 pseudo-spiritual fires near the magma lake. Wang Daoist himself went to the Gui water nether spring to condense the water attribute pseudo-spiritual fire. The straight-line distance from the Gui water nether spring to this place was only a little more than 1,000 miles. Wang Daoist could completely sense the clone in a panoramic view. If there were any problems, he could quickly rush over. The fire seed of the earth attribute pseudo-spiritual fire was strong enough to suppress the flames and would not burn everywhere. Wang Daoist left the magma lake and soon arrived near the Gui water nether spring. Back then, in order to block the spring, the stone wall condensed with the earth wall technique was still intact. The yin qi that he could not bear at that time had no effect on him now. There was no need to destroy the stone wall with the Gui water nether flames pseudo-spiritual fire. Back then, he dug an underground space to draw the spring water. At the entrance of the space, he opened up a small hole half an inch in diameter. The spring water quickly spurted out from the small hole. The amount of water was not large. In a breath, it could only produce 20 to 30 pounds of water. In a breath, the Gui water nether spring could produce a few hundred pounds of water. The amount of water drawn out would not cause too much of an impact on the water vein. Now that the underworld sect felt the threat of the old family, if there was a problem with the water vein here, it would cause the yin qi of the nether water river at the underworld sect's mountain gate to disappear. In a panic, this group of grandsons may attack the cultivators of the old family. As the leader of the old family, the Wang family would definitely suffer heavy losses. This Gui water nether spring was a grade 4 spirit spring with extremely rich spiritual qi. It could not be more suitable to condense the water attribute pseudo-spiritual fire. 20 to 30 pounds of water in a breath was enough. Wang Daoist drew out a wisp of the Gui water nether flame to ignite the spring water. The spring water and the Gui water nether flame came from the same source. It was suitable for the Gui water nether flame to burn. The 20 to 30 pounds of spring water that gushed out in a breath could not flow anywhere else. It was all burned by the flame and turned into flame essence. Half a month later, Wang Daoist took out the sesame-sized Gui water nether flame and merged it into the black flame in front of him. The Gui water nether spring was indeed a grade 4 spirit spring. The growth rate of the water attribute pseudo-spiritual fire was even faster than the 2 pseudo-spiritual fires in the lava lake. In just over an hour, the pseudo-spiritual fire stabilized. Wang Daoist was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he let the pseudo-spiritual fire absorb more spiritual energy. After all, the reason why the pseudo-spiritual fire had the word pseudo was because it was not stable enough. Especially the newly formed water attribute pseudo-spiritual fire, it was only slightly stronger than the rootless fire without a fire seed. If it encountered a greater disturbance, it was very likely to be extinguished. After the spiritual fire was refined, the pseudo-spiritual fire would be extinguished. At that time, it would be troublesome to take out the refined spiritual fire and condense the pseudo-spiritual fire. There was no need to wait for all the pseudo-spiritual fires to grow into spiritual fires. As long as their fire seeds were half the size of a green bean, they would not be extinguished easily. At the same time, he also made some preparations to refine the spiritual fire. Although the refining method of the spiritual fire left by the 5 elements Daoist would almost never cause a backlash from the spiritual fire, it was still better to be safe. After all, the 5 elements Daoist only refined the dust-returning flame when he was at the early Jindan stage. At that time, his physical body was much stronger than his. Before that, he still had to do his best to increase the strength of his physical body. He took out a blood lotus seed. This was a treasure that could strengthen the physical body. Previously, he had also asked the flying sand cultivator about how to use it. At the Treasure Cauldron Mountain, he had also asked his master about the blood lotus seed. This thing could be directly consumed without worrying about being affected by the demonic qi and blood qi. Wang Daoyuan's own spiritual energy contained various special attributes. Furthermore, the 5 elements demon subduing seal could restrain the demon race. Even if there was some demonic qi in the blood lotus seed, it would not be able to create any big waves. After swallowing a blood lotus seed, before refining it, the blood lotus seed would turn into pure qi and blood and merge into the blood of the body. Wang Daoyuan immediately circulated the body tempering technique of the 5 spirits immortal art. He used the 5-element spiritual energy to nourish his internal organs and meridians, and then his entire body. It took him more than a month to completely consume the qi and blood force. It took a year for the effects of the blood lotus seed to subside. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan could defeat an ordinary late-stage Sifu realm cultivator with just the strength of his physical body. The fire seed of the pseudo-spiritual fire was half the size of a green bean and would not be extinguished easily. Everything was ready. It was time to refine the spiritual fire. Chapter 494. Wang Daoyuan stored the water attribute pseudo-spirit fire into the space of the spirit pearl and placed it in the water attribute spirit vein. He used the earth mountain technique to block the small hole that gushed out of the spring water. Then, he left the gray water nether spring and returned to the lava lake. After storing the fire and earth pseudo-spirit fires into the space of the spirit pearl, the fire seed of the fire attribute pseudo-spirit fire was already half the size of a green bean. However, the fire seed of the earth attribute pseudo-spirit fire did not increase by much. The bigger the fire seed, the harder it was to continue growing. Coupled with the fact that the fire seed's restrictions on the spirit fire increased, the growth of the pseudo-spirit fire would obviously slow down. After the fire seed was half the size of a green bean, it could not grow rapidly no matter how many resources were used. It could only be slowly ground down with time under the premise of sufficient resources. If not for that, perfected Lord 100 spirits would not have taken 200 years to condense the scarlet yang true fire. Putting away his doppelganger, he meditated by the lava lake to adjust his condition to the best state. Among the 5 elemental spirit fires, the wood attribute spiritual fire was the most gentle. He started refining with it. From the space of the spirit pearl, he drew out a wisp of life's spiritual fire. This time, he did not extract the spirit energy within. Instead, he guided the wisp of spiritual fire into his dantian through his meridians and finally merged it with the wood attribute spiritual power seed. This was to first integrate a wisp of rootless fire and let the spiritual power seed fuse with it. After that, he guided the fire seed into his body and fused it with the spiritual power seed. This way, there would not be any rejection. A day later, his entire wood attribute spiritual power seed was slowly burning. The spiritual power seed and rootless fire could be considered to have successfully fused. Then, he converted all the spirit energy in his body into metal attribute spirit energy. Once the life spiritual fire was noisy, he could use his spirit energy to suppress it. Next, it was time to guide the life spiritual fire. However, the life spiritual fire grew from the peach tree sapling and merged with the top bud of the sapling. To refine the spiritual fire, he had to separate the fire seed first. Wang Daoyuan's spirit entered the space of the spirit pearl. As the owner of the space, he had a certain degree of control over the things in the space. Although he did not refine the spiritual fire, no spiritual fire dared to be arrogant in the space. His spirit released the power of spirit consciousness and separated the life spiritual fire from the peach tree sapling. The sapling and the life spiritual fire did not resist much and separated. He controlled the life spiritual fire to leave the space of the spirit pearl and followed his meridians to his dantian. Then he fused it into the wood elemental spiritual power seed. Since the wood attributed spiritual power seed had already turned into a rootless flame, it didn't reject the flame of life. After that, the entire spiritual power seed burned intensely, constantly consuming the spiritual power seed. Wang Daoyuan immediately used the secret method to refine the spiritual fire, completely fusing the spiritual fire seed and the spiritual energy seed into one. If the spirit power seed could not be fused with the fire seed before it was exhausted, then the refinement would fail. However, the life spiritual fire had never been troublesome. It was completely controlled by Wang Daoyuan without much struggle. Half a month later, the tinder of the flame of life had completely merged with the spiritual energy seed and completely replaced the previous seed. The structure of the wood elemental spiritual power seed was the same as before, except that the wood elemental spiritual power with life force had changed to the origin of spiritual fire. Once the fusion was complete, the refinement would be a success. Refining the life spirit fire did not cause any problems. His body did not suffer any damage either. After refining the first spiritual fire, the rest was simple. The second target was the dust returning flame. Among the 5 elements, wood countered earth. Since he had already refined the life spirit fire, he was not afraid that the dust returning flame would cause trouble. Once there was an abnormality, he could use the life spirit fire to suppress the dust returning flame. Before that, he first converted all the spiritual power in his body into wood elemental to prevent the dust returning flame from causing trouble. The method was the same. First, he fused the rootless flame with the spiritual power seed, then the tinder. Because the dust returning flame was corrosive, he first used the life spirit fire to envelop his meridians when moving it from the space of the spiritual pearl into his dantian. After the dust returning flame left the space of the spiritual pearl, it began to burn intensely. Wang Daoyuan quickly mobilized his spiritual power to suppress the dust returning flame. The fire quickly subsided and smoothly entered his dantian. The spiritual fire was called spiritual fire because it had a trace of spirituality. Although it could not be considered sentient, it would still seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. During the fusion process, the dust returning flame felt threatened and wanted to resist. However, it was all wood elemental spiritual power in his dantian, without a trace of earth elemental spiritual power. The dust returning flame was isolated and helpless. Under the dual suppression of the spirit consciousness and the life spirit fire, the dust returning flame yielded. This time, it took a longer time and took a month to complete the refinement. Next was the gui water death flame. Earth countered water and water countered wood. Under the dual suppression of the life spirit fire and the dust returning flame, the gui water death flame could only accept its fate. Back then, when he first obtained the gui water death flame, he nearly lost his life. However, after the gui water death flame was kept in the space of the spiritual pearl, it was subdued by the life spirit fire and the dust returning flame. The refinement method was the same. However, the gui water death flame was more wild and wanted to resist after leaving the space of the spiritual pearl. Under the suppression of the 2 spiritual fires, it did not cause any big waves. A month later, the gui water death flame was also refined. After that, it was the scarlet yang true fire and the tai golden flame. With the suppression of multiple spiritual fires, they did not cause any trouble. 2 months later, the refinement of the 5 spiritual fires was completed. Wang Daoyuan circulated the 5 spirit immortal transformation technique and a spirit qi wind appeared in the cave immediately. As soon as the spirit qi from the outside world was absorbed into his dantian, the 5 spiritual power seeds ignited it and quickly refined it. In terms of the speed of refining spirit qi into spirit qi, the celestial spirit root was not qualified to compete with him. The refined spirit qi was extremely pure and he tried to condense it into vital essence. The spiritual power seeds could not help in this step, but because of the purity of the spirit qi, the speed was not much worse than the average celestial spirit root. There were also differences between celestial spirit roots. A 9-inch single spirit root was a celestial spirit root and a 1-foot single spirit root was also a celestial spirit root. The difference between the two was not small. From the time the spirit qi entered the body to the time it was condensed into vital essence, the time it took was considered average among celestial spirit root cultivators. In other words, his overall cultivation speed was comparable to a celestial spirit root cultivator with a 9-inch and a half spirit root. As for the speed of recovering spirit qi, The celestial spirit root was not qualified to compete with him, unless it was a celestial spirit root that had refined the spiritual fire. The spiritual fire also had an extremely strong growth potential. Now, these spiritual fires were only 3rd level upper grade. When they grew to 4th level in the future, the speed of refining spirit qi would definitely increase. At this time, the spirit qi in Wang Daoyuan's body could be transformed between spiritual fire and spirit qi. Transforming the metal attribute spirit qi into the Tai golden flame and casually using the golden saber technique, the small saber condensed was completely composed of the rootless fire of the Tai golden flame. This was not strange. The purple lightning from the purple lightning evil punishing token was also burning with purple flames. Cultivators with spiritual fire all had this ability. However, his dust returning flame and Gui water death flame had special functions. One could corrode all substances, and the other could burn the divine sense and soul. Transforming the earth attribute spirit qi and water attribute spirit qi into spiritual fire and using an ordinary sand flying technique, the sky would be filled with dust returning flame. Using the cloud mist escape would have similar effects. Together with the Suzuka fan and the heaven burning divine flame technique, the spiritual fire alone could completely defeat those of the same level. Now that he had refined the spiritual fire, according to this cultivation speed, his spirit qi cultivation could reach the peak of the Purple Mansion realm in more than 10 years, which was Zhou Luan's current state. After that, he could find an excuse to go to his master and comprehend the Golden Core realm. In the space of the spiritual pearl, the concentration of spirit qi had decreased significantly after losing 5 spiritual fires. Previously, it was very close to the level of 4th level spirit vein, but now it was only at the beginning of 3rd level upper grade. However, the life spiritual fire seed fire and the 4 pseudo-spiritual fires had replaced the spiritual fire. Now that there was no spiritual fire to compete with them for spirit qi, their growth speed was obviously faster. It seemed that it would take at most 5 or 6 years for all of them to become real spiritual fires. Chapter 495. After fusing with the spiritual fire, there would be a flaw, and that was that it would be very difficult to suppress the spiritual power seed. The special attributes of the 5 elemental spiritual energies would be particularly obvious, and others would easily discover that his spiritual energies were very heterogeneous. A cultivator with mixed spiritual power who wasn't an evil cultivator, anyone could guess that it was him. If he wanted to hide his identity, he could only wear the soul-binding silk Daoist robe at all times. After forming the golden core, it didn't matter anymore. With the 5 elemental spiritual fire and the 5 elemental devil subduing seal, even a golden core late-stage cultivator would not be able to take him down easily. The half-step yuanying was something that only the 4 top forces had. They wouldn't appear so easily. At that time, even if it was exposed that he had the spiritual fire, no one would be able to do anything to him. It was only during this period of time before he formed his gold core that he had to act like a grandson. Wang Daoyuan left the underground cave and hid his tracks before returning to his family. He handed the yin-yang cub to his 3rd brother, Wang Daocheng, and asked him to arrange for suitable clansmen to open up their zifu. Then, he headed to the sky/mountain range again. This time, he wasn't heading towards returning Wild Goose Market, but towards the heavenly/mountain range's main vein. It was time to explore the passage left behind by the 10,000 corpse Daoist master. Of course, he would not be the one to explore it. His clone, Zheng Ping, would be the one to do so. Zheng Ping was a half-corpse and didn't have many years left to live. Instead of letting him die of old age, he might as well use his remaining energy to explore the way. The myriad corpse Daoist master didn't have much information about that place in the vast ocean records. He only knew that it was made up of river valleys and alluvial plains, similar to Linhai Prefecture. However, it was shrouded in clouds all year round. The closer it was to the sea, the thicker the clouds. He wasn't too sure about the specifics. Zheng Ping was at the late-stage Violet Palace realm. Thus, it was very likely that he would succeed in exploring this path. Wang Daoyuan erased all of Zheng Ping's memories and gave him a few defensive Dharma artifacts and a soul-binding silk cloak. Even if the exploration failed, they would only lose a subsoul. If he succeeded, he would be able to figure out the situation east of the Heaven/Mountain range without having to take any risks himself. In the future, if he were to develop in that direction, he would be able to take fewer detours. North of Mount Huiyan, about 1,000 kilometers away from the Heavenly/Mountain Range's main mountain range, he released Zheng Ping and returned to Jade Spring Peak. The matter of taking office in Guiyan City Square could not be delayed any longer. It had been more than 2 years since he accepted the appointment. If this dragged on, those bastards from the local faction would probably make things difficult for him. Setting off from the Jade Spring Peak, he swaggered towards Gold Goose City to visit the 12th uncle, who was stationed there, and left him 50 purple rhythm pills. Then he flew to Guiyan Market. The former guardian already knew that Wang Daoyuan had swaggered over. The previous protector was a local cultivator of the Netherworld School, a middle Zifu disciple named Ming Huai. He was a disciple of the Dark Sea Master's family. Before the Dark Sea Master passed away, he was the strongest person in the Underworld sect. The Ming family was also in the limelight. Ming Huai relied on Ming Haizhenren's strength to obtain the position of guardian of returning Wild Goose Market. Now that the situation in Shanbei had changed, the guardian of Guiyan Market had become a hot potato. Ming Huai had wanted to leave long ago, but Ming Hai's spiritual master had passed away, and the Ming family's status was not as good as before. It would be difficult for Ming Huai to transfer him away. Now, the Netherworld sect began to suppress the family and placed Wang Daoyuan here. Ming Huai was impatient to have the chance to leave this troublesome place. When Wang Daoyuan arrived at the Netherworld sect's encampment, Ming Huai led 4 Zifu disciples out to welcome him. In the past, Guiyan Market only had 1 Zifu disciple overseeing it. Ever since the 3 sects stopped fighting and wanted to deal with the Guiyuan sword sect, they increased their strength in Guiyan Market. In these years, Guiyan Market had always had 5 Zifu disciples and 30 foundation establishment cultivators. Ming Huai greeted, "Manager Wang has finally arrived. I've been waiting for a long time. Please come in and have a seat." Wang Daoyuan followed Ming Huai into the encampment. Ming Huai handed several beastskin books to Wang Daoyuan. "Manager Wang, these are the account books left behind by the previous guardians of returning Wild Goose Market. The top book is from when I was in charge." Wang Daoyuan took the beastskin book and only flipped through the top book. Then Ming Huai brought him to the treasury and compared the remaining items to see if they matched the contents of the account books. As long as the account books matched the items, nothing else mattered. As for what Ming Huai did to the account books, it was not his responsibility. If there were any problems in the future, it would not be his fault. After confirming that there were no mistakes, Ming Huai handed over the guardian's seal and the treasury key, and said with a smile, "The position of guardian will be completely handed over to Manager Wang. The factions in Guiyan Market are intricate and complicated. Our Netherworld sect is one of them. The half-demons and demons each have one, and there is also a small human faction in Shanbei. The small human factions are weak and do not dare to provoke our Netherworld sect, so there is no need to care about them. The demons and half-demons are strong and need to be dealt with carefully. Manager Wang should have heard of the conflict between the two sides. You must not provoke them." He was too clear about the demons and half-demons. Originally, the conflict between the two factions was not too big, but he and Zhou Luan had been fanning the flames, causing the conflict between the two sides to escalate. Now, Zhou Luan had stopped, so the demons and half-demons should not fight for a while. Before he formed his core, he had to prioritize stability and try not to cause any trouble. Wang Daoyuan nodded, "Don't worry, I know the severity of the matter. I will not get involved in the matters between half-demons and demons." Ming Huai smiled, "In that case, I can rest assured. I have already told you what I wanted to tell you. Goodbye." After sending Ming Huai off, Wang Daoyuan also got to know his subordinates. Of the 4 Zifu realm cultivators who stayed in Guiyan Market, 2 were from the old family and 2 were cultivators from outside. Among the cultivators from the family, there was a familiar person. This person was called Jiang Jingming. After the battle at Wuching Pass, Jiang Jingming brought him to the Netherworld sect to receive his reward. Along the way, the two of them talked quite a bit. Jiang Jingming's Jiang family was in the south of Qingli County. There was no outstanding person among the Jiang family's descendants. Back then, Jiang Jingming tried to get close to him, hoping that Wang Daoyuan would take care of the Jiang family. Wang Daoyuan clasped his hands towards him. Jiang Dao, long time no see. I didn't expect you to be here as well. Jiang Jingming hurriedly bowed. Greetings, Steward Wang. In the future, I will be working under you. Please take good care of me. Wang Daoyuan stayed in the encampment for a few months, then gathered the 4 Zifu realm cultivators and handed the protector's seal and a jade talisman to Jiang Jingming. He said to them, the spiritual energy here is too thin. It will hinder cultivation. I plan to leave the market and find a nearby place suitable for cultivation. When I am not here, Elder Jiang Jingming will be in charge of everything. If you have any objections, wait for me to return before reporting them. Before I return, you must be obedient. I don't care which faction you belong to. I don't have the time to make things difficult for you, but don't make trouble for me either. Elder Jiang, I won't be too far away from Guiyan Market. If you encounter any problems that you cannot resolve, send me a message. I will quickly return. The 4 of them repeatedly promised that they would take good care of the affairs of Guiyan Market. Although Jiang Jingming's talent for cultivation was lacking, his ability to handle affairs wasn't weak. With the seal he had left behind, it wasn't a problem for him to keep 2 outsider Zifu realm cultivators in check. The upper echelons of the Netherworld school weren't very strict with the various protectors. As long as nothing happened, the protectors could do whatever they wanted. Even if something did happen, at most they would be charged with dereliction of duty. The Netherworld school dared to suppress him, but they didn't dare to act against him directly. After all, he still had the status of being the disciple of Adept Thunderflame. If they acted against him directly, Adept Thunderflame would take revenge on them. Wang Daoyuan hid his power, leaving Guiyan Market. He took a long detour, then arrived at the Blood Shadow North Mountain branch. In the following period of time, he was going to train hard. The Netherworld School's encampment was simply too boring. It was better to train in Zhou Luan's estate. Chapter 496. Wang Daoyuan entered Zhou Luan's cave abode and smiled. Oh master, I'm back. A day apart feels like 3 autumns, and we haven't seen each other for over 3,000 years. How have you been? Without waiting for Zhou Luan's reply, he sat down on the stone chair. Holding a spiritual fruit, he gnawed on it while saying, it still feels good to be home. Zhou Luan no longer took his teasing seriously. She walked out of the backyard and asked, why do I feel that your aura isn't right? What have you been doing for the past 3 years? Wang Daoyuan took off the spirit-restricting silk cloak. It's nothing. I refined spiritual fire, and my spiritual energy has the characteristics of spiritual fire. Zhou Luan used her spiritual sense to examine him and asked worriedly, refining spiritual fire is extremely dangerous, and you will be severely injured if you're not careful. You refined 5 spiritual fires so you're not injured, right? Wang Daoyuan smirked. Don't worry. The method of refining spiritual fire is part of my cultivation technique, so I didn't even suffer any backlash. My body is much stronger than before, especially my kidneys. They are much stronger than before. Zhou Luan was teased by him many times, so she naturally understood the meaning in his words and threw the spiritual fruit in her hand at him. Wang Daoyuan caught the spiritual fruit and ate it. Oh master, are you feeding me? All right. How's your comprehension of the Golden Core realm? My strength has increased greatly, and I can fight with ordinary early-stage Golden Core realm cultivators. I can protect you. Zhou Luan sighed. How can it be that easy? My comprehension of the Violet Palace realm is enough, and I should be at the peak of the Violet Palace realm. But at the Golden Core realm, it involves the power of laws. This is also the reason why there is a heavenly tribulation when breaking through to the Golden Core realm. Most cultivators at the peak of the Violet Palace realm don't have a strong enough body and can't comprehend the laws. I have a special physique, so there's no problem with my body. It was just that comprehending laws completely depended on luck. If you're lucky, you'll be able to comprehend it all of a sudden. If you're unlucky, even if you're daydreaming for 100 years, it'll be useless. Wang Daoyuan ignited a wisp of crimson yang true fire in his hand. If you want to comprehend other laws, I really can't help you. But I can help you with the laws of fire. I have refined the spiritual fire, and my entire body is covered in flames. Why don't I stay in your room? You can just stare at me when you comprehend the laws. I don't mind. Zhou Luan glanced at him. In your dreams, stay in the front yard. If you dare to enter the backyard, I'll cut you down with my sword. She condensed a ball of fire attribute spiritual power in her hand and used it to draw in the scarlet yang real fire in Wang Daoyuan's hands. The moment the scarlet yang real fire came into contact with the fire attribute spiritual energy, it began to burn. Wang Daoyuan spurred the flame, and the flame suddenly shot up more than a foot high. He said proudly, "The true fire of scarlet yang is too dangerous. It's better for me to stay in your room and protect you." Zhou Luan took out the scarlet luan flowing flame sword and pointed it below his waist. "If you dare to play tricks again, you'll have to bear the consequences." Wang Daoyuan felt a fatal threat and immediately gave in. Zhou Luan drew away a wisp of rootless fire and intimidated Wang Daoyuan. She returned to the backyard complacently. Wang Daoyuan also swallowed a purple rhythm pill and sat down to cultivate. After refining the purple rhythm pill, the spiritual power contained in it entered his dantian. The 5 spiritual power seeds were like wolves seeing lambs, and instantly swallowed the spiritual power. The purple rhythm pill's effect of increasing cultivation was gone just like that. Of course, there was also an advantage. The pill toxins were also gone. No matter how strong the pill toxins were, they could not escape from the 5 elements. Naturally, they could not escape the refinement of the 5 elements spiritual fire. In the future, when he reached the golden core realm, his body would be even stronger. He could use the 5 elements spiritual fire to refine all the accumulated pill toxins in his body. In order to preserve the effects of the purple rhythm pill, he had to suppress the 5 spiritual power seeds. His cultivation speed was not as fast as not taking the pill. There was no point in taking the purple rhythm pill in the future. He might as well keep the purple rhythm pill and use other spiritual items to increase his cultivation. He took out a jar of 100-year-old spiritual peach dew. He had plenty of older spiritual peach dew, but he did not dare to take it out. Zhou Luan was also an alcoholic. If he took it out, it would be snatched away. So it was not easy to explain the age. He drank the jar of spiritual wine. There was no need to refine the spiritual wine. The spiritual wine could enter his meridians in a dozen breaths. Wang Daoyuan drew the spiritual power into his dantian, and the 5 spiritual fires instantly devoured the spiritual power. This speed was several times faster than normal cultivation. It felt great to have resources and the ability to use them quickly. After cultivating in Zhou Luan's cave abode for 7 years, his cultivation had reached the pinnacle of the Violet Palace realm. As early as a year ago, his spiritual power cultivation had already reached the Great Circle. As for the comprehension of the Violet Palace realm, it wasn't difficult. There was the comprehension of the 5-element Daoist, the myriad corpse Daoist, the Patriarch and his master, the Thunderflame Daoist, as well as Zhou Luan's one-on-one teaching. It only took a year for him to reach the pinnacle of the Violet Palace realm. Jiang Jingming's ability wasn't weak in the underworld sex encampment. He could handle all kinds of matters well. He would only be contacted when there was a major issue. In the past few years, Wang Daoyuan and Zhou Luan did not fan the flames between the demon race and half-demon race. The situation between the two sides had eased up a little. What Jiang Jingming had to deal with were the trivial matters of the daily transactions with the demon race and half-demon race. In the spiritual pearl, the 4 spiritual fires had also grown to the level of spiritual fires. However, their grades were still a little low. Apart from the spiritual fire of life, which was a 3rd-grade spiritual fire, the other 4 spiritual fires were only 2nd-grade spiritual fires. the expansion of the spiritual field in the spiritual pearl had also slowed down. In the past, it would take 20 years to expand 1 mu of spiritual field. Now, it would take 100 years. However, the spiritual fire had a high growth rate. The spiritual field would grow faster in the future. The red-winged crow's cultivation had also reached 3rd grade spiritual fire, and its origin feather was already a foot long. It could be used to refine the vermilion bird fan. The largest blood fire hibiscus was also 3rd grade spiritual fire, so it wouldn't be a problem to refine it into a fan handle. The red-winged crow's fighting strength wasn't much weaker than Lin Yun's. However, it couldn't show itself. Otherwise, it would be exposed in the 100 Spirit Lord's cave abode. Wang Daoyuan had been using all kinds of fire attribute spiritual items to tempt the red-winged crow to hand over its origin feather. The red-winged crow had the bloodline of a divine beast and was extremely intelligent. However, it had been staying in the spiritual pearl all this time and was relatively naive. How could it compete with the cunning Wang Daoyuan? It quickly agreed to hand over its origin feather. Wang Daoyuan didn't have to pull it out himself. The bird could let its origin feather fall off on its own. The red-winged crow didn't suffer any serious injuries after losing its origin feather. It was just a little listless and its spiritual power was unstable. After eating some fire attribute spiritual items, it stayed near the red sun primordial fire to rest. Wang Daoyuan placed this origin feather on the red sun primordial fire to slowly nourish it. Using the primordial fire to refine the impurities, it could be refined into the vermilion bird fan. The other 4 origin feather had been nourished with spiritual fire for many years. Even the weakest one, the wood attribute origin feather, had advanced to 3rd grade spiritual fire. At this time, a violent fluctuation of fire spiritual power came from the backyard of the cave abode. How could Wang Daoyuan let go of such an opportunity? He immediately ran into the backyard garden. Just as he was about to enter the boudoir to take a look, he heard an unusually wild laughter. Brat surnamed Wang. Before she finished speaking, Wang Daoyuan hurriedly asked, "Hallmaster, have you thought it through? Do you want me to protect you?" Zhou Luan walked out of the boudoir and glanced at him. "You wish. I have comprehended a trace of the law of fire. The time to form my core has come." Wang Daoyuan asked, "Do you have a place to form your core?" "The place I know of with abundant fire spiritual power is only 3rd grade spiritual fire. It's really not enough to form my core." Zhou Luan said proudly, "Your ability to find spiritual veins is far inferior to mine. I have already found a place to form my core. It's at the Snow Dragon volcano. All you need to do is to prepare and protect me." Wang Daoyuan had heard of the Snow Dragon volcano. There was a 4th grade spiritual fire there. However, because it was near the Arctic ice fields, there was often snow on the mountain. The supply of spiritual power was definitely not a problem to form his core there. The biggest problem was that it could easily disturb the demon race in the Arctic ice fields. Chapter 497. Wang Daoyuan pondered for a long time before asking, "I don't know much about the Snow Dragon volcano. I only know that it's not far from the frozen ice plains. With my strength, it'll be good if I can take down 1 4th rank demon beast. If a large number of 4th rank demon beasts are attracted, I won't be able to do anything." Zhou Wan didn't care at all. "Don't worry, the Snow Dragon volcano is more than 20,000 kilometers away from the frozen ice plains. The core formation process won't attract attention before the heavenly tribulation. After the core formation is successful, the tribulation will cause a bigger commotion. Even if the tribulation is successful, it won't take more than 2 hours. Demon beasts are naturally afraid of heavenly might, so they don't dare to approach during the tribulation. It's only during the heavenly tribulation that they dare to take advantage of it. In the end, the heavenly tribulation will only take about 15 minutes. Excluding the time it takes for demon beasts to arrive, you only need to hold on for a little while. When the heavenly tribulation is over, we can escape." Wang Daoyuan nodded. It hasn't even been 15 minutes, so there should only be a few demon beasts that dare to come. However, do you have any spiritual items that can assist in core formation? Zhou Wan shook her head. The four top forces and blood shadow don't have a stable supply of such items. In the past, there were some spiritual plants that could assist in core formation. Now that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is insufficient, these spiritual plants are either dead or half dead. The only stable spiritual item that can assist in core formation is the inner core of a 4th-rank demon beast, also known as a demon beast golden core. 4th-rank demon beasts can fly, so we can't catch them with just 2 peak Zifu realm cultivators. Fortunately, the most dangerous part of core formation is the heavenly tribulation. Even if the process of forming a golden core fails, there won't be any danger. At most, the body will be damaged, and it'll be fine after a few decades of recuperation. This was also true. The success rate of core formation mainly depended on the amount of qi, blood, and true essence. If the qi, blood, and true essence were abundant, and the body was strong enough, the probability of forming a golden core was very high. Most of those who failed to form a golden core died under the heavenly tribulation. Moreover, if the body and true essence didn't reach the level of core formation, no one would try. Zhou Luan's talent was even stronger than the 12th uncle's. Although she didn't have a heavenly spirit root, she wasn't far from it. On top of that, with his unique constitution, his physical body, and his blood qi were not weak. It was not difficult for him to condense a golden core. Wang Daoyuan asked again, "How do you deal with the heavenly tribulation?" You have the Zhou family's ancestral battle constitution. After you formed your gold core, you automatically awakened a minor divine ability. After the 9 golden core heavenly tribulations, there will be a minor divine ability tribulation. Have you thought about how to deal with it? I've even thought of the child's name. Don't be too hard on yourself. The heavenly tribulation could only be withstood by oneself. If others were to participate, not only would it worsen the heavenly tribulation, they would also be trapped in it. Those who interfered would not be facing heavenly tribulation, but heavenly punishment. The heavenly tribulation was a test, and there would always be a chance of survival. The heavenly punishment was relentless. Even though she was used to being teased, Zhou Luan's cheeks still turned red. If you can think of it, how can I not? Do you really think that I've been a hall master for more than 200 years just because I've been doing nothing? I've prepared 5 defensive magic tools to resist the lightning tribulation, and I've also prepared healing and recovery pills. With the 9 golden core heavenly tribulations and the minor divine ability tribulation, I can still withstand it. Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, "Then I'm relieved. I didn't think of the child's name in vain. I still need about a year to refine the vermilion bird fan. With 4 of the 5 lifebound magic tools of the 5 elements devil subduing seal, I'll be more confident in dealing with 4th-rank demonic beasts. Take advantage of this year's time to make some more preparations." Zhou Luan nodded, then reacted. "Who let you in? Go to the front yard and refine." Wang Daoyuan ran to the front yard dejectedly, preparing to refine the vermilion bird fan. Tu Yuming helped with the processing of the materials. He was also a 3rd-rank mid-grade artificer, so this wasn't a problem. The 5 lifebound tail feathers were of different lengths, so they also needed to be adjusted. The red-feathered crow's lifebound tail feather was the most important. As the centermost feather, it didn't need to be processed, and was only 1 foot and 5 inches long. The wood and earth element feathers were adjusted to a length of 1 foot and 2 inches. The metal and water feathers were placed at the edge and adjusted to 1 foot long. To a 3rd-rank artificer, changing the size of the materials by extracting and adding spiritual power wasn't a big deal. After processing the tail feathers, Tu Yuming cut down the largest blood-fire hibiscus and used the trunk to make a 6-inch fan handle. Wang Daoyuan took the processed materials out of the space in the spirit pearl and used some fire element supplementary materials to fuse the tail feathers and fan handle into one. After tempering it with fire, it took shape. Having refined 3 lifebound magic tools, he was already very proficient in using spiritual power to condense tool patterns. Even though Mount Vermilion Bird's tool patterns were more complicated than the previous 3, he still only used half a year to refine it. Then he drew out flames from the 5 spiritual power seeds and nurtured the 5 fan feathers. After refining the spiritual fire, Nurturing the life-bound magic tools became easier. Putting the life-bound magic tools into the dantian and placing them near the corresponding spiritual power seeds, they would be able to absorb spiritual power on their own. Of course, to upgrade their grade, they still needed the help of spiritual power. Wang Daoyuan tried to fuse the 4 life-bound magic tools into the 5 elements demon suppression seal. Its power had already surpassed the purple lightning demon slaying token by a lot. It wasn't difficult to severely injure an early-stage golden core cultivator in one move. He secretly ran to the backyard and came to the door of his room. Just as he was about to enter, the scarlet phoenix flowing flame sword flew out. Wang Daoyuan dodged the flying sword and said with a smile, "Hallmaster, I'm here to report that the vermilion bird fan has been refined. We can set off for the snow dragon volcano." Zhou had also finished packing. She wore 2 yin and yang rings and wore a red dress. She wore the spirit-binding silk cloak that Wang Daoyuan gave her. The two left Guiyan Market from different directions and met up 1,000 miles north of Guiyan Market. Guiyan Market was more than 100,000 miles away from Snow Dragon Volcano. At such a long distance, flying on a sword was enough to exhaust spiritual power several times. Wang Daoyuan's wind-fire flying kite was too eye-catching and wasn't suitable to take it out. Zhou took out a fiery red flying boat. It was called the Scarlet Phoenix Flying Boat. The Scarlet Phoenix Flying Boat was more than 3 feet long and 8 feet wide. It could fly more than 7,000 miles in 2 hours. The two rode the flying boat and headed north. They passed by the Mirror Treasure Lake Oasis. There were many Foundation establishment cultivators here. It had been almost 100 years since the last time they explored the Yellow Springs secret realm and lost a lot of people. The group of people who escaped back then was probably mostly dead. The people who came later didn't know how powerful this place was and continued to cultivate here. After passing the Mirror Treasure Lake Oasis, there was a desert in front of them. Occasionally, there were some small oases that were occupied by half-demon tribes and demons. The two of them were just passing by. The half-demons and demons wouldn't come out to cause trouble. They walked and stopped along the way to enjoy the scenery. It took them 5 to 6 days to reach Snow Dragon Volcano. Snow Dragon Volcano wasn't small. The volcano was cone-shaped and had a diameter of almost 100 miles. The volcano hadn't erupted for many years, so the fire spiritual power that was released wasn't much. Therefore, snow could be used outside the mountain. The flying boat stopped in the sky 100 miles south of the volcano. Zhou pointed at the volcano's mouth and said, "The fire spiritual power in this volcano is restrained. There isn't much spiritual power outside. If I want to form my core, I have to go inside the volcano. However, there is a group of poisonous lava fire scorpions inside. These guys can grow to the 3rd rank upper grade at most. They live in the volcano all year round and have strong resistance to fire magic. With my methods, it will take a lot of effort to kill a group of poisonous lava fire scorpions. I'm afraid it will take a few months. If the commotion is too big, it might even alert a 4th rank demon beast. You have all 5 elements and have more methods. I'll leave it to you." Wang Daoyuan's Gui Water Death Flame could directly attack the soul. It couldn't be easier to deal with spiritual insects. However, in the volcano's mouth, the Gui Water Death Flame couldn't be used. He could try using the soul-bearing bell. If it didn't work, he could release the returning Dust Flame and Scarlet Yang True Fire. No matter what scorpions they were, they would be burned to death. He patted his chest and said, "Hallmaster, don't worry. This small matter can't stop me. Please rest for a moment and watch me deal with these bugs." Chapter 498. Wang Daoyuan flew to the volcano on his sword and came to the top of the crater. The crater was only 100 feet in diameter, and the lower he went, the bigger the space. Waves of heat gushed out from the crater. After all, it was a level 4 mid-grade lava lake. Even in a stable situation, it couldn't be underestimated. The lava lake was only 30,000 feet from the crater, and the Snow Dragon volcano was 20,000 feet high. The lava lake here was 10,000 feet below the ground. Using his divine sense, he probed the walls of the crater. Just near the crater, there were a large number of poisonous lava fire scorpions. However, these guys were of low grades, only second grade mid-grade. They seemed to be underage scorpions. The lower he went, the higher the grades of the poisonous lava fire scorpions. Near the lava, there were more than 10 third-grade upper-grade poisonous lava fire scorpions. These guys weren't very big, only 5 or 6 feet long. However, the size of a third-grade spiritual insect couldn't be judged by its appearance. There were too many demonic beasts and spiritual insects that could change their size. Wang Daoyuan didn't plan to subdue the scorpions. They didn't have a queen like bees, and he could control a group of them by controlling the queen. Since he couldn't subdue them, he couldn't leave any of them alive for Zhou Luan's safety. Scorpions were very sensitive. It was impossible to sneak up on a third-grade upper-grade poisonous lava fire scorpion. As soon as he entered the crater, he was discovered. He took out the Azure Dragon Pearl, and a 20-meter-long Azure Dragon Phantom flew out. The life force of the poisonous lava fire scorpions within 100 feet of the pearl was instantly sucked dry. These guys were of too low grades and had no resistance to the Azure Dragon Pearl. Seeing that their companions were killed, the third-grade poisonous lava fire scorpions below attacked Wang Daoyuan. They used their tails to shoot out flame needles with a trace of black gas, which were obviously poisonous. Wang Daoyuan didn't take these spells head-on. He flew out of the crater on his sword to avoid the spells. Zhou Luan needed to form her core in the crater, so she needed to stay here for a few months. He couldn't cause too much of a commotion to avoid attracting demonic beasts. He needed to get rid of these poisonous lava fire scorpions as soon as possible. He transformed the earth and fire attribute spiritual energy in his body into dust-returning flame and true sunfire. Casting the meteor fall technique, the flaming meteors smashed into the volcanic crater one after another. After many improvements, the meteor fall technique was extremely powerful. These scorpions weren't stupid. They didn't dare to take the meteorites head-on. Wang Daoyuan's goal was not to kill these scorpions, but to ignite the magma lake below. The meteorite was made up of flames, and it instantly ignited the lava. He took out the vermilion bird fan and gently fanned it a few times. The earthy yellow and scarlet gold flames formed a fire tornado in the crater of the volcano. Wherever the fire whirlwind touched, no life could survive. Even the rocks were incinerated. Those rank 3 venomous lava fire scorpions used their innate spells to attack the fire whirlwind, but the effect was minimal. Soon, all of the venom fire scorpions were dealt with by the fire whirlwind. The poison fire scorpion was unwilling to just sit there and wait for its death. It did its best to escape towards the mouth of the volcano. Wang Daoyuan had been waiting for them to come. He activated the Azure Dragon Pearl again, and every venom fire scorpion that came out died. After a quarter of an hour, there was not a single living thing left in the crater. The life force stored in the Azure Dragon Pearl was also full. However, he didn't let the Azure Dragon Pearl refine the life force. Zhou Luan would definitely be injured after the tribulation. The life force would be left for her to heal. The dead venomous lava fire scorpions were all burned to ashes. Although it was Wang Daoyuan who came looking for trouble, he didn't feel guilty. The fight for survival between the alien species was a life and death struggle. In every beast tide, tens of thousands of humans died at the hands of the alien species. Killing one more demon beast meant that dozens, hundreds, or even more people would die in a beast tide in the future. After cleaning up the crater of the volcano, he took back the rootless fire. The Crimson Yang True Fire remained in the magma. It could burn the magma and produce a large amount of fire spirit chi, which would be of great help to Zhou Luan's core formation. Zhou Luan came to the crater of the volcano and smiled. I really underestimated you. I didn't expect you to finish off a nest of venomous lava fire scorpions so quickly. Wang Daoyuan raised his head and said proudly, of course. In the future, you'll realize that you underestimated me in many ways. Zhou Luan steered the flying boat and landed by the lava lake below. She found a clean place and sat down cross-legged. Wang Daoyuan didn't think of setting up an array formation to resist the thunder tribulation. Unlike dermic weapons, array formations couldn't resist the thunder tribulation. That was because the spirit qi in the array formation didn't come from the person undergoing the tribulation. Therefore, the thunder tribulation would see it as an external object and strengthen it. To weaken the thunder tribulation, one could choose a place with special terrain. For example, if one underwent the tribulation in the crater of the volcano, the water and metal element thunder tribulations would be weakened by the magma. Such a naturally formed terrain was also a manifestation of the laws and wouldn't cause the thunder tribulation to strengthen. Zhou Luan condensed her golden core in the crater of the volcano while Wang Daoyuan stood guard around her. If any demonic beasts approached, they would kill them without exception. After staying here for half a year, there was finally some movement in the crater of the volcano. A strong wave of spirit qi was emitted from the crater of the volcano. Soon after, a crimson ball with a diameter of 7 inches appeared and slowly descended. This was the golden core. Once the golden core fell, the thunder tribulation would soon descend. Dark clouds began to appear in the sky and there was a pressure that covered an area of 15 kilometers. Wang Daoyuan immediately cut off his connection with the rootless fire in the lava lake to avoid being recognized as an external interference by the heavenly tribulation. Then he retreated 15 kilometers away from the crater of the volcano. More and more dark clouds gathered in the sky and finally formed a cluster of dark clouds with a diameter of 15 kilometers. The center of the cluster of dark clouds was facing the crater of the volcano. Soon, a bluish-white thunderbolt as thick as a child's arm descended from the sky. The thunder tribulation had officially descended. The power of the first thunder tribulation was very weak. Even a peak Zifu realm cultivator could easily withstand it. Zhou Luan took out a 4th-tier low-grade fiery red shield and directly blocked the first thunder tribulation. 10 breaths later, the second bluish-white thunderbolt descended from the sky. This thunderbolt was already as thick as an adult's arm. However, Zhou Luan's shield was strong enough and the second thunder tribulation did not cause much damage to it. Another 10 breaths later, the third bluish-white thunderbolt descended. This thunderbolt was as thick as a water bucket. Zhou Luan's shield still managed to withstand this thunderbolt. However, the light of the shield was somewhat dim. The 9 golden core heavenly tribulations were divided into 3 groups. After each group of thunder tribulation, there would be a 15-minute interval. The person undergoing the tribulation could use this time to recover from their injuries. After 15 minutes, the 4th thunder tribulation descended. This thunderbolt was already golden in color and its thickness was the same as the first thunder tribulation. After Zhou Luan's shield received this thunderbolt, a huge crack appeared on it. Soon, the 5th thunder tribulation descended. The shield was directly shattered, and part of the thunderbolt struck Zhou Luan's body. However, she had a special constitution after all and only suffered minor injuries. She took out a 4th-tier low-grade mirror. The 6th thunder tribulation descended. The mirror was shattered and the power of the thunderbolt was exhausted. Zhou Luan took out a healing pill and consumed it to recover from her injuries. 15 minutes later, the purple thunderbolt descended. Zhou Luan took out a 4th-tier low-grade magic weapon to block it. After the thunder tribulation destroyed the magic weapon, it also caused some injuries to her. After the 8th thunder tribulation destroyed the magic weapon, about 30% of its power fell on Zhou Luan's body. She was seriously injured and spat out a mouthful of blood. When the 9th thunder tribulation descended, Zhou Luan took out her magic weapon and condensed the phantom of a scarlet Luan to resist it together. After the magic weapon was destroyed, the phantom of the scarlet Luan dissipated. However, more than half of the spiritual power fell on Zhou Luan's body. This time, the spiritual power in her body fluctuated between strong and weak. After spitting out a few mouthfuls of blood, blood kept seeping out from the corners of her mouth. After the 9th golden core heavenly tribulation, the 5 magic weapons that Zhou Luan prepared were all destroyed and she was seriously injured. She immediately took a healing pill and drank a jar of 100-year spiritual peach dew. After recovering her injuries and spiritual power, she prepared to deal with the minor divine power tribulation. For her, the thunder tribulation was just an appetizer. The last minor divine power tribulation was the main course. This tribulation could not be resisted with ordinary magic weapons. She could only rely on her natal magic weapon and minor divine power to resist it. Chapter 499. The heavenly tribulation was about to end and the demonic beasts that wanted to take advantage of her should be ready. He could not help with the tribulation transcendence and could only try his best to deal with these demonic beasts. Fortunately, the elixirs that Zhou Luan prepared were good. After 15 minutes, most of her injuries were healed. The tribulation cloud emitted the pressure of a divine beast. A moment later, a scarlet Luan divine bird with a wingspan of more than 100 feet dived down towards Zhou Luan with a large sea of fire. Zhou Luan also took out her natal dermic artifact. A scarlet Luan phantom with a sea of fire went up to meet it. At this moment, the scarlet Luan phantom was the original form of the dermic artifact and carried the power of a natal dermic artifact. After 9 golden core heavenly tribulations, Zhou Luan was already a true golden core cultivator. This scarlet Luan phantom also carried the power of a minor divine ability. The 2 scarlet Luans met and spat out scarlet flames. These flames were not condensed with ordinary fire attribute spirit energy. They seemed to contain a trace of spirit fire. The minor divine ability tribulation was exactly the same as the minor divine ability that a tribulation transcendence cultivator comprehended. It seemed that Zhou Luan's minor divine ability should be the legendary Scarlet Luan Divine Fire. In the future, with this minor divine ability, there was hope that she could condense spirit fire. The 2 Scarlet Luans were entangled in the air. Zhou Luan's dermic artifact was obviously weaker. The heavenly tribulation Scarlet Luan was obviously stronger and suppressed the dermic artifact. Zhou Luan injected all her spirit energy into the dermic artifact and drank a few mouthfuls of wine to replenish her spirit energy. At this moment, a purple light flickered between her eyebrows and there were even phoenix cries. She had even used her purple mansion resonance. When a cultivator underwent the tribulation transcendence, even if their quintessential essence and blood were exhausted, as long as they still had a breath of life, the gift of heaven and earth after the heavenly tribulation could completely restore them. However, the power of this minor divine ability tribulation was not weak. Zhou Luan tried her best but still could not resist it. The heavenly tribulation Scarlet Luan pressed the dermic artifact into the mouth of the volcano. Zhou Luan used her quintessential essence and blood to resist, but it only slowed down the heavenly tribulation Scarlet Luan's descent. After half a cup of tea's time, Zhou Luan's magical item's original form collapsed, and the heavenly tribulation Red Luan pounced on her. Sensing the collapse of a Scarlet Luan phantom, Wang Daoyuan subconsciously wanted to rescue it. Just as he was about to enter the range of 15 kilometers, a bolt of blue-white lightning fell from the sky and struck less than a foot in front of him. This was a warning from the heavenly tribulation. He calmed down and stopped moving forward. In the crater of the volcano, Zhou Luan raised a spiritual energy shield to resist the flames of the heavenly tribulation Scarlet Luan. Her spiritual energy barrier was quickly burned through by the flames, and the flames burned her body. She was also very ambitious. At the same time, she continued to refine the tribulation divine flames. 15 minutes later, the divine flames of the heavenly tribulation were gradually extinguished. The pressure of the tribulation clouds also disappeared, and the dark clouds in the sky turned into golden auspicious clouds. The golden core heavenly tribulation was considered to have passed. If he had failed to transcend the tribulation clouds would have dispersed. Looking at the auspicious clouds in the sky, Zhou Luan had succeeded. Wang Daoyuan immediately rushed to the mouth of the volcano. Zhou Luan, who was in front of him, was almost burnt to a crisp. However, there was still a weak vitality in the charred remains. Wang Daoyuan took out the Azure Dragon Pearl and activated it with all his strength. Rays of emerald green light shone on Zhou Luan. The vitality in Zhou Luan's body rapidly increased, but her injuries were too serious. It was impossible for her to completely recover with the power of the Azure Dragon Pearl alone. Soon, golden raindrops fell from the sky and poured into the crater of the volcano. Most of the raindrops fell on Zhou Luan's body. Receiving the nourishment of the gifts of heaven and earth, Zhou Luan's condition quickly improved. Her originally charred body quickly recovered. A heavenly tribulation made her already thin clothes even worse. As a gentleman, Wang Daoyuan would definitely not look at indecent things. After a dozen breaths, he felt that his qi and blood were a little unstable, and his nose was a little hot. After body refinement, his physical body had become stronger, but the impact of his qi and blood had also become stronger. He took out a forbidden spirit silk cloak and covered Zhou Luan. Then he left the crater of the volcano. The gifts of heaven and earth were fatally attractive to all living creatures. There would definitely be shameless demonic beasts who wanted to take advantage of the situation. Wang Daoyuan also received some gifts from heaven and earth. He felt refreshed and his spiritual power was purer. Even his soul and body had some improvements. In the future, if he encountered an enemy in the core formation realm, he could rob them. After half a cup of tea's time, a sound similar to a phoenix's cry came from the north. It was just that the sound was really unpleasant, as if a phoenix had swallowed a gravel in its throat. It gave off an extremely fierce feeling. It seemed that the visitor was not friendly. Not long after, a fourth-rank low-grade bird that looked like a phoenix but had no tail feathers appeared 100 miles away. It was a white and black low-grade bird with a hint of black. From 100 miles away, Wang Daoyuan could already feel the pressure. The strange bird spoke in human language. The person transcending the tribulation is also a beauty with the phoenix bloodline. She can be my princess. Upon hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was displeased. A mongrel chicken dared to steal his woman. Even if he was a man, he wouldn't tolerate it. He opened his mouth and cursed, "Where did this mongrel chicken come from? Get out of my way." The strange bird was also furious. It had the phoenix bloodline, but it was too thin and couldn't grow a crown or long feathers. It looked a bit like a pheasant. It usually liked to hear other demonic beasts call it a phoenix. Now that it was being scolded by a Zifu realm junior, how could it not be angry? It transformed into a young man wearing a black and white robe. There were no traces of a demonic beast on him. His transformation was quite successful. It rushed towards Wang Daoyuan and said angrily, "Where did this wild brat come from? How dare you look down on the Phoenix clan?" Wang Daoyuan transformed his spiritual power into spiritual fire and took out the vermilion bird fan. He said disdainfully, "Your tail isn't even as long as an old hen. How dare you call yourself a phoenix? Shameless." The strange bird waved its hand and shot out a few ice swords, which went straight for Wang Daoyuan. It seemed casual, but it was comparable to an attack from an early-stage golden core cultivator. It would be very difficult for an ordinary cultivator at the peak of the Zifu realm to receive it. However, Wang Daoyuan had the spiritual fire, so it was easy for him to deal with the ice attribute magic. The scarlet yang true fire was still burning in the lava lake below the volcano. He waved the vermilion bird fan and the golden flames in the lava lake rushed out and wrapped around the ice swords. Even if it was an attack from a fourth-stage demonic beast, it wouldn't be able to withstand the might of the spiritual fire. Moreover, the spiritual fire was backed by a fourth-stage mid-grade fire spiritual vein. The ice swords quickly melted. Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "Bald chicken, listen to my advice and get out of here. Otherwise, I'll make you into a roasted chicken." A fourth-stage low-grade roasted chicken is also a delicacy. The strange bird was unable to restrain its anger and continuously shot out ice attribute magic. However, a sea of fire with a radius of more than 15 kilometers had already appeared between Wang Daoyuan and it. The sea of fire was controlled by the vermilion bird fan, so the pressure on Wang Daoyuan's spirit wasn't too great. Even if he couldn't control it, it would only damage the vermilion bird fan. His spirit wouldn't be affected. With the lava of the volcano as its backing, the sea of fire was still expanding. The fire attribute countered the ice attribute to begin with. Against the endless spiritual fire, unless one's strength was absolutely overwhelming. Otherwise, any ice attribute magic would be useless. The strange bird transformed into its original form, a gigantic bird with a wingspan of more than 3,000 feet. It was covered in thick ice armor and wanted to forcefully fly through the sea of fire. Wang Daoyuan summoned all 4 of his destiny-dermic weapons and even condensed the phantom of the Kirin seal. The strange bird could tell that his dermic weapons were extraordinary and immediately retreated from the sea of fire. It circled around the edge of the sea of fire, trying to go around it and enter the volcano. Wang Daoyuan used the sea of fire to envelop the entire volcano. The strange bird wouldn't be able to come down until all its feathers were burned off. On the other hand, the golden raindrops weren't affected by the flames at all. They passed through the sea of fire without any damage. This strange bird was also a coward. After being in a stalemate for a quarter of an hour, it still didn't dare to charge into the sea of fire. The gift of heaven and earth was still continuing, and Zhou Luan's aura was also getting stronger. At this time, bird chirps and beast roars came from the north and east. Wang Daoyuan's heart sank. They were going to be surrounded by 4th-stage demonic beasts. At this time, Zhou Luan hadn't woken up. It was impossible to escape with Zhou Luan. With his speed, there was no way he could escape the pursuit of the 4th-stage strange bird. Besides, the gift of heaven and earth hadn't ended yet. He didn't dare to rashly take Zhou Luan away. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if the damage caused by the heavenly tribulation wasn't completely healed. He could only stay here and wait for her to wake up before letting her take him away. Chapter 500. At this moment, the golden clouds above the snow dragon volcano began to weaken rapidly. Wang Daoyuan suddenly heard Zhou Luan's voice. "Lure it in, let's kill this mixed-feathered bald-tailed chicken." Even though the demon race had reached the 4th rank, their consciousness was still far inferior to that of humans. The strange bird did not notice the two's divine consciousness transmissions. The demon beasts and demon birds in the distance were about to arrive. There was not much time to set up a trap. He had to kill this guy as soon as possible and escape immediately. If he escaped now, he would be entangled by this strange bird. Wang Daoyuan pretended to be exhausted and put away all the magic artifacts except the vermilion bird fan. The entire sea of fire was also somewhat out of control. The strange bird looked at the golden clouds that were getting thinner and was also somewhat anxious. When the golden clouds dissipated and the person undergoing the tribulation recovered, it was not confident that it could deal with a golden core cultivator. Seeing that Wang Daoyuan was somewhat exhausted, it became excited. A peak Zifu cultivator controlling 4 magic artifacts at the same time, and controlling such a large sea of fire, he should have been unable to hold on long ago. It wrapped itself in ice armor and charged into the sea of fire, attacking Wang Daoyuan. When the strange bird was about a mile away from Wang Daoyuan, Zhou Luan's body was wrapped in flames and transformed into a scarlet Luan divine bird, soaring into the sky. The pressure of a divine beast swept out. The strange bird only had a little bit of the phoenix bloodline. How could it face the scarlet Luan? It immediately changed direction and fled to the side. The vermilion bird fan in Wang Daoyuan's hand shone brightly, and the flames of the entire sea of fire surged towards the strange bird. The scarlet Luan that Zhou Luan transformed into also had some ability to control flames. The golden sea of fire was brought up by her waves of flames, chasing after the strange bird. The strange bird knew that it was no match for her, and a burst of blood chi and vital essence appeared on its body, followed by a burst of speed. This was a secret escape technique that consumed vital essence and blood chi. Although Zhou Luan transformed into a scarlet Luan, she was still a human cultivator. In terms of escaping, she could not compare to the strange bird, and was quickly left behind. She withdrew the flames on her body and summoned her scarlet Luan flowing flame sword, slashing towards the strange bird. The flying sword was extremely fast. Carrying a large amount of golden flames, it slashed at the back of the strange bird. This strange bird was worthy of having the bloodline of the phoenix. Its physical body was not weak. The sword only left a deep wound on its back. The golden clouds formed by the tribulation clouds had yet to dissipate, and golden rain continued to fall. However, The figures of demonic beasts had already appeared in the north and east. The two of them did not dare to stay any longer. Zhou Luan withdrew her natal dermic artifact, and an auspicious cloud appeared beneath her feet. She carried Wang Daoyuan and fled towards the southwest. Wang Daoyuan continued to wave his vermilion bird fan to extract spiritual energy from the crimson-golden flames in the sky. After absorbing the spiritual energy into his body, he continuously sent it into the space of the spiritual pearl. Unfortunately, there were simply too many flames. He had only absorbed a small portion of it, and the auspicious cloud under his feet had already flown 100 miles away. Without his control, the remaining flames began to quickly extinguish. On the other hand, the flames in the lava lake below the volcano could still burn for a while if they were not disturbed. Wang Daoyuan looked behind him. 5 huge demonic beasts flew above the volcano. They did not chase after the two of them. Instead, they were fighting over the remaining golden raindrops. Soon, some demonic beasts also flew over on their clouds and fought with the demonic beasts. Wang Daoyuan heaved a sigh of relief. Looking at Zhou Luan's few remaining clothes, he coughed lightly and said, "Hall Master, you should wear some clothes." Previously, when she transformed into the Scarlet Luan, her body was burning with raging flames. After all, the soul-forbidding silk was only a second-tier material. How could it withstand the flames of a small divine ability? It had already turned into nothingness. The clothes on Zhou Luan's body were the remnants of the lightning tribulation. Zhou Luan smiled lightly. "Didn't you even think about what the child would be called? Why are you embarrassed now?" After she formed her core, a faint red flame mark appeared between her eyebrows. Her skin was faintly shining. The Scarlet Luan's charm had not been completely restrained. Coupled with this smile, it was even more charming. Her clothes were still untidy. Wang Daoyuan's blood was boiling. He only felt his nose heat up. He hurriedly cast a rejuvenation technique on his nose, took out a cloak, and put it on Zhou Luan. "I'm a gentleman. Naturally, I won't peek. I'm afraid of being seen by despicable people." Zhou Luan mocked, "A gentleman won't peek. But you're a lecher. As a body refinement cultivator, you can still have a nosebleed. That's all you've got." Wang Daoyuan was about to argue when an earth-shattering sound came from behind. The two of them looked back and saw the volcano behind them spewing out a large amount of lava. The lava also contained the corpses of several 4th-tier demonic beasts. He reckoned that these few demonic beasts were really angry and fought their way into the mouth of the volcano. The lava lake below the volcano had been burned by Wang Daoyuan with spiritual fire for half a year. This time, dealing with the strange bird had used up a large amount of spiritual power. It had become unstable. How could it withstand the battle of a group of 4th-tier demonic beasts? The volcano's body collapsed and the earth was shaking. Cracks spread out in all directions from the volcano. Lava also gushed out of the cracks. The demonic beasts nearby panicked and fled desperately. With such a huge commotion, it was very likely to trigger a huge beast tide. This place was still very far away from the Huiyan mountain range. The beast tide might not affect the Guiyan market. However, the relationship between the demons and half-demons in the north of the mountain was very subtle. This beast tide might cause a full-scale conflict between the demons and half-demons. The two of them did not care about these things for the time being. After flying for more than 2,000 miles, Zhou Luan put away the auspicious cloud and took out the Scarlet Luan flying boat. After all, it was too ostentatious to ride on an auspicious cloud. With the volcano erupting in the north, they did not have the leisure to sightsee. Driving the flying boat, they headed straight for the Guiyan market. The two of them returned to the Guiyan market as if nothing had happened and entered the underground division. Near the extreme cold ice plains, the demonic beasts fighting caused the volcano to erupt. What did it have to do with the two of them? Returning to Zhou Luan's cave residence, Wang Daoyuan continued to stay in the front yard of the cave residence, recalling the power of the heavenly tribulation, especially the last minor divine ability tribulation, which contained the law of fire. He was a cultivator of the 5 elements and needed to comprehend the law of the 5 elements. If he could comprehend the law of fire, the other 4 laws would be a matter of course. Zhou Luan returned to the backyard and freshened up. Then she walked out wearing thrifty clothes with her hair tied up in a high ponytail. Wang Daoyuan hurriedly fawned over her. "Lord Hall Master, this subordinate would like to ask about the law of fire. What do you think?" Zhou Luan said with a smile, "Of course, no problem. Come to my boudoir and we can discuss it slowly." Wang Daoyuan sternly refused. "I'm a gentleman, how can I casually enter your boudoir? I think this place is quite good. We can discuss it here." Zhou Luan said mockingly, "Didn't you say you wanted to come to my boudoir to protect me? I have no objections now. Do you dare to come?" Of course, Wang Daoyuan did not dare. Before Zhou Luan formed her core, she needed to keep her primordial yin to increase the success rate of forming her core. It was fine to tease her. Now that she had formed her core, losing her primordial yin was not a big deal. But he was still in the core formation stage, so he had to endure it. There was no other way. Now his offense and defense had changed. Not only did he not dare to tease Zhou Luan, but he also had to face Zhou Luan's teasing. Moreover, Zhou Luan had awakened a minor divine ability and her strength had increased greatly. She was far from being comparable to ordinary early-stage golden core cultivators. This bit of ability of his was simply not enough. There was no other way. In order to comprehend the law of fire, he could only compromise. After saying all kinds of nice things, Zhou Luan used her minor divine ability and condensed a small flame. She handed the flame to Wang Daoyuan and teased, "Lord Vice Hall Master, the flame condensed by this divine ability is very dangerous. Do you want me to protect you?" Sure enough, sooner or later, you would have to pay for what you did. Just like how he teased Zhou Luan in the past, now he was being teased in the same way. Wang Daoyuan took the flame, took out a few jars of spiritual peach dew, and answered obediently, "Lord Hall Master is very busy, but you still took time out of your busy schedule to help me comprehend the law of fire. I'm very grateful. Please accept these jars of wine as a token of my respect." Chapter 501. Zhou Luan took the wine jar with satisfaction and smiled, "You know your place. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to come to my room and ask me. I will answer with all my heart." Although Wang Daoyuan did not want to go over even if he was beaten to death, he still said that he would do it. Now that he was being suppressed by Zhou Luan, he had no choice but to lower his head. Zhou Luan carried the wine jar and arrogantly returned to the backyard. Wang Daoyuan continued to inject wood attribute spirit energy into the flame. His fire attribute spirit energy had the characteristics of the Scarlet Sun True Fire. If he used fire attribute spirit energy, the rootless flame would quickly be assimilated. Among the 5 elements, wood gave birth to fire. Using wood attribute spirit energy could also maintain the fire attribute spirit energy. Although it would not burn too vigorously, it would not change the characteristics of the rootless flame. He used his divine sense to probe the flame and carefully felt the fire laws. His own Scarlet Sun True Fire was a 3rd-level upper-grade spirit fire. The fire laws were not obvious, and the difficulty of comprehending them was higher. This flame was condensed from Zhou Luan's small divine ability. It was considered a 4th-level lower-grade rootless flame. The fire laws were more obvious, and the effect of comprehending them was better. He compared the rootless flame with the Scarlet Sun True Fire. In just half a year, he had a preliminary feeling of the fire laws. Fire was the most destructive and violent attribute among the 5 elements. Fire elemental spells all followed the same principle, which emphasized the instantaneous eruption of a huge amount of power. Of course, this was only the simplest comprehension. Core formation only required these simple comprehensions. Starting from the Jindan stage, the path of cultivation could not be separated from the comprehension of the laws. As one's cultivation increased, the requirement for comprehension would also be higher. The Jindan stage only had comprehension of the laws and used it as a basis to modify techniques. At a higher level, one had to directly use the power of the laws. Everything was difficult at the beginning. After comprehending the fire laws, it would be much easier to comprehend other laws. He wanted to continue comprehending, but Jiang Jingming sent him a message saying that there was an important matter that he needed him to do personally. He could not reject it. After all, he had the position of Guiyan City Square's guardian. Before core formation, he still had to be a monk ringing the bell. If he were to neglect his duties, he would definitely be punished. After bidding farewell to Zhou Luan, he left the underground branch, took a big detour, and returned to the underworld sex station. After entering the encampment, Jiang Jingming immediately took out a beast skin book and said, "Steward Wang, this is the account book of all the matters I've dealt with over the years. Please take a look." Wang Daoyuan took the account book and flipped through it briefly. He then checked the treasury and found no problems. He nodded and said, "Elder Jiang is indeed a capable person. These few years, when handling the branch's affairs, there were no oversights. Is there anything important that requires me to deal with personally?" Jiang Jingming replied, "Have you heard of the major event that happened to the south of the Arctic icy plains?" Wang Daoyuan was naturally well aware of this, but he would never admit it verbally. With a puzzled expression, he asked, "What happened to the south of the Arctic icy plains? I've been cultivating in Huiyan Mountain all this time, so I didn't care about anything else." Jiang Jingming continued, "About half a year ago, the snow dragon volcano 20,000 miles to the south of the Arctic icy plains erupted and caused a violent earthquake. All the demons within 10,000 miles were affected, and a large beast tide was triggered. These few years, the demons and half-demons were at odds with each other, and the beast tide destroyed many half-demon tribes. This made the situation even more tense. At first, they were fighting in secret, but now they've started to act. Furthermore, the Jindan half-demons and fourth-rank demons are more restrained, so there hasn't been an all-out conflict yet. However, if this continues, an all-out war is unavoidable. Now, both sides want to rope in the underworld sect. This time, they want to meet with you and ask about your attitude. The time is 3 days later, and the location is at the Huiyan Pavilion in the center of the market." Wang Daoyuan nodded and didn't say anything, but his heart wasn't calm. The situation he was most worried about had happened. Once the two sides clashed, he would be cannon fodder. 3 days later, Wang Daoyuan brought Jiang Jingming and a foreign Zifu elder to the Huiyan Pavilion in the center of the market. The location of the meeting was on the 3rd floor of the Huiyan Pavilion. Wang Daoyuan led the two Violet Mansion elders to the 3rd floor and entered the main hall. A silver-haired Violet Palace Realm half-demon sat on the main seat with two early-stage Violet Palace Realm half-demons beside him. On the right was a Peak Violet Palace Realm half-demon with black hair and red eyes. There were also two early-stage Violet Palace Realm half-demons beside him. The Huiyan Pavilion was the property of the Silver Fox tribe, so the one sitting on the main seat should be someone from the Silver Fox tribe. Wang Daoyuan brought the two to the left and sat down. Then, he cupped his hands and said, "May I know why the two of you have invited me here?" The silver-haired half-demon smiled, "I'm the Silver Fox tribe's Grand Elder, Hui. I'm the representative of the half-demons." He then pointed at the red-eyed half-demon and said, "This is Daoist. He's the representative of the demon race." For a Violet Palace realm meeting like this, the demon race would send their subordinate half-demons. After all, third-rank demons couldn't take human form and couldn't speak the human language, so they couldn't discuss matters. As for fourth-rank demons, their status wasn't on the same level. Therefore, they sent their subordinate half-demons. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "I'm Wang Daoyuan, the guardian of the Huiyan Pavilion." "Greetings, Daoyu. Fellow Daoists, what do you want to discuss with me? Let's get straight to the point." Huyu smiled. "Daoyu is indeed a straightforward person, so I'll be direct. The eruption of the snow dragon volcano caused the demon beasts to flee, and we half-demons suffered heavy losses. Since the demon race attacked first, we naturally can't just sit and wait for our deaths. Now that the conflict between the demon race and half-demons is inevitable, I wonder what the underworld sect's stance is?" Wang Daoyuan chuckled. "What does the matter between you half-demons and the demon race have to do with my underworld sect? My underworld sect only has a few shops in the southern part of the Huiyan Pavilion. Apart from that, we don't have any other property. We're just doing business here. If the two of you want to fight, why should we take sides? Songyun finally spoke. It said that the eruption of the snow dragon volcano was caused by a human undergoing the golden core heavenly tribulation there. Since the culprit is the human race, don't think you can get away with it. Wang Daoyuan mocked him. Songyun, what does Daoyu think my underworld sect is? The highest commander of the human race? My underworld sect only occupies 1/3 of Zhao, which is just a drop in the ocean compared to the entire Beiyuan Xiuxian. How can we have the power to control all the human race's affairs? You also admitted that the human race caused the eruption of the snow dragon volcano, but that's just hearsay. There's no real evidence. Daoyu wants to force my underworld sect to take sides with such baseless words. Isn't that too overbearing? Who you also asked, Daoyu means that the underworld sect doesn't care about the conflict between the half-demons and the demon race? Wang Daoyuan replied, my underworld sect's attitude towards the north of the mountain has always been to do business and not get involved in the affairs of the north. Naturally, we don't want the two of you to fall out, which will affect our business. If you insist on fighting, we won't get involved. We'll just switch to another person to do business with. Songyun didn't give up and asked aggressively, this eruption was caused by the human race. The demon race also suffered heavy losses. Daoyu wants to get away with it? You underestimate us too much. Wang Daoyuan also gave tit for tat. The matter of the rogue cultivators has nothing to do with my underworld sect. However, the Snow God Palace in the northwest is one of the 4 top forces of the human race and can represent all the human race. If you have any opinions, you can go to the Snow God Palace and ask for an explanation. Songyun had nothing to say. They didn't dare to provoke the Snow God Palace. After all, those people were good at suppressing aquatic demons. If the demon race dared to go there, they would be killed. Seeing that Wang Daoyuan didn't want to get involved, Huyu was a little disappointed. I wonder if the underworld sect can continue to do business with us half-demons. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.